Yo, what up, guys? We are live. All right, we have a pretty fucking cool show for you today. We have a nice little combination of people. So we got Kyla, NotsoErudite, joining us, and we also got this, I guess, dude who's basically a PhD in, and he researches the Manosphere. So this is gonna be very interesting. Kyla introduced me to him, but yeah, this guy apparently has dedicated a lot of time to researching Manosphere related issues. So it's gonna be kind of interesting to see what he has to say from a scientific perspective. I'm always typically skeptical of academics, but we'll see. And we're going to have James from Modern Day Debate coming on as well. So I've been on his channel quite a lot, so that should be fun. Yeah, I feel like he rarely ventures outside of his channel, so it's going to be good to get him on our channel. So we're going to have, it's going to be at least 4 people, and then maybe we'll invite some people from the chat. Maybe some more people will open. We'll probably do a open panel at the very end, like we always do. But yeah, should be a good time. Everyone's running a little late. So yeah, they'll be here. Kyla just messaged me saying she's having tech issues. James said that he needs until 9:45, but I didn't want to delay the show. So James is going to be here 9:45, and the other dude should be here any minute. So it's going to be a good time. Oh, you guys like my new haircut? I just got this a few hours ago. All right, let's do a little Q&A while we wait for the guests to arrive. Dum-dum-dum. Okay, let's see. Do we have any good questions? So have a bunch of bickering as always in the chat. Let's see if there's any good bickering going on though. I don't actually see any questions. I just see a bunch of diddly daddling in the chat. Alex, is that swastika tattoo? No, it's not swastika tattoo. It's a dragon. I'm half Jewish, so the swastika tattoo probably wouldn't really make too much sense. What's your email, Alex? My email is playingwithfirechannel@gmail.com, but please do not send me photos of your face. I think it's pretty weird to rate dudes' faces. I think it's a pointless endeavor, but if you really, really want to, you can post in our free forums, and I'll take a look at that. All right, Alex, do you think the mystery method or mystery's advice aged well? Not particularly. What's up, Alex? I'm the dude who sent you my weight loss on WhatsApp. If I did start cold approach and got audio video, would you be able to give me some feedback? Sure. Yeah, I haven't checked my WhatsApp messages today, but sure, I can help you with that. Okay. Let's see. What else do we have? I thought Jewish people couldn't get tattoos, but Goldberg did. Yeah, I'm not like actually religiously Jewish. I'm just ethnically Jewish. Ask Erudite if she thinks dating as a man in your 30s is easier than in your 20s. Okay, sure. I can ask her. Why is P such good gameplay? Is he a natural? No, he's definitely not natural. We wrote a whole article on his whole little progress journey. But no, he didn't lose his virginity until he was 27. He was definitely a late bloomer. So yeah, we have a whole article on this and we have some videos on this as well. But no, he was not natural. Alex, what's the best way to dress nice in college that we're doing since most people wear hoodies and sweatpants? I don't know. I'd wear like maybe khakis and like shirts, like black shirts that fit well. Like you can get go on what's that website that I like? I keep forgetting the name. Well, you can go to Zara or something like that, Zara or Hugo Boss or something like that. Get those shirts with khaki pants. I think that could be a nice in between. Okay. PWF, I sent you that email, bro. Check it out if you got time. Yeah, man. I'll try to take a look. Playing with fire on a stream. I think you say take Lexapro doesn't affect your video. I started taking Lexapro 2 weeks ago. My libido now goes non-existent. Thoughts? Yeah, it affects everyone differently. So it could. I mean, definitely loss of libido is one of the side effects. It just again depends on your brain chemistry and whatnot. So yeah, so I mean that's kind of a decision you're gonna have to make whether you want to stay on it or not, whether the pros outweigh the cons. But yeah, just because I didn't have that side effect doesn't mean that you won't. When is Alex Lindbergh coming out for a debate? I don't know what I would debate about with Lindbergh, but he's coming out for a speed date, I believe, pretty soon. Oh, easy question. Why do you make this channel? Profit, helping others? What's your purpose? That makes sense. What's a combination of all of those? Yeah, sure. Like this is a career for me. I enjoy also doing this. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, I also enjoy sharing knowledge and helping people. So, I mean, there's many reasons why. It's like the typical YouTuber shtick, which is like, I enjoy doing this. It's fun. It's a good career that I enjoy doing. I get pleasure out of helping people. It's like a combination of those things. Indian P backstory is actually insane. Recommend everyone listen to it. How he lost his weak card is also a funny story. Yeah, for sure. Check it out. Why are you claiming that a lot of women get approached during the day in Miami and California? That's not true. Well, I don't know how you would know that given the fact that you live in Australia, but as someone who lives in Miami, I see this shit all the fucking time. But unless you have some like counter evidence, then yeah, I don't really give a shit what your opinion from across the world is. Alex, why don't you make more seduction tutorial videos considering how those are your highest viewed videos? Yeah, I've done a bunch of them actually. I feel like I've kind of run out of topics though, but I could, I guess, try to repurpose some of the old ones. When is the best time to post in the forums? You can post whenever you want, really. It's up to you. Yeah, there's no like time that's gonna get you a better response. One of your favorite haters, Larry B. I know. Although Arctic Wolf is giving him a run for his money, it's like it's the competition of dipshits. Uh, Alex, does it take a degree in master research to realize the real social retarded that RZ Tyler couldn't lay carbon Bishop teachers make him look like the crap role? No, I don't think it actually takes a degree to figure that out. Alex, I'm sure we've all seen videos of Obama on YouTube. He seems calm, funny, and dominant. Do you think such body language could be good girls? Yes. I think Obama is very charismatic, which is part of the reason why he became president. He's good at building up like the crowd, and I don't know, some of that stuff I feel like only really applies to politics. But yeah, I can see Obama being pretty good with the girls. I mean, he seems a little nerdy, but aside from that, like when he was younger, yeah, he was probably good. He's got that charisma. I feel like he's got that natural confidence. This guy's funny. Alex, you lie about a lot of things, like including huge flake rates from Tinder. Yes, I'm really getting like a 10% flake rate, but I just want to seem more relatable to the average guy. So I decided to lie and make it seem like it was 80 or 90%. You called me. Like, it doesn't even make any sense. Okay. Let's get Kyla on. Yo, what up?
Hello. Hello, hello, hello.
What's going on? You look like you're in a different room today.
Different angle. Same room. New
Mm.
camera. Yeah.
So where's this researcher friend of yours?
I'm not sure. I think it was pretty last minute for him, so I'm a little bit worried that he thought it was maybe next week. I said tonight, but it's possible. He's EU, so.
Okay. Yeah, modern day debate. James said he's going to come around 9:45 because he's driving home right now.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, he hasn't messaged me back. I sent him the link once you sent it to me, so I guess we'll have to find out. And then if he's asleep because he's European, then he probably won't be here, and that means he probably thought it was next week.
Okay. Let me see where Ayla is at also, because we were like talking about having her come on, and then she like sometimes just drops off in like the most frustrating times when I'm trying to set shit up. Let me see if she responded. Nope. Probably hear from her tomorrow. But all right, we can get started without all these secondary people. So let's start off with this. Did you watch my President Sunday debate?
I did not. I've been busy like all weekend. How did it go?
Too busy to watch me embarrass the fuck out of President Sunday?
I've seen so many instances of people embarrassing the fuck out of President Sunday that, yes, too busy to see the same routine again and again and again with him. So yeah, I haven't seen it. Was it good?
It was as kind of when like the way you would expect it to go. So we started off. I started off by challenging his claim that I'm miserable because he seems to really feel like I'm a very miserable human being. So I asked him
Right.
why he thought I was miserable. The only example he could give is the fact that I have one video. In one of my debates, I referenced a study about dating and racism, and only a miserable person would look that up, even though it's directly related to the debate. So that seemed to be like the crux of his argument. And I started pressing him on that, and he was like, "Dude, I'm getting bored of this topic." So every time he was like cornered, he would just be like, "Oh, dude, this is just not that interesting to me. I don't know why I said it." So then we moved on to his claim that I'm Andrew Tate Light. That one also he cucked on that pretty fast. He's like, "Oh, but it's just not that interesting to me. Not that interesting to me." So and then we somehow wound up debating about trans issues, and then on that one he was like, "Oh well, I actually need more time to research this, so I can't talk about this." So he literally was just like any topic I would bring up, he'd be like, "I can't talk about this," or "I'm not interested in talking about this."
Mm.
And it was just turned into
He's
the
known as President Run Day, so that seems to, for the most part, follow his motif.
he ran pretty fucking hard. And also, like, you couldn't really get his story straight. He was like, "Bro, I'm just doing this debate because I'm killing time." I'm like, "Okay, that's cool." And then he was like, "Yeah, I don't even want to be here. I'm just doing this because of our mutual friend." And I was like, "Dude, I literally heard you say
What's
on
your
your live
mutual friend?
stream that you're debating me because I have 125,000 subscribers. Like, come on, like."
Yeah, he's just a clout goblin. He's just going to obsess about and he will not stop until you stop engaging with him. Basically, the issue is he could be like a pretty good lolcow, but he like has collected this weird assortment of the most like Dunning Kruger fucks in his community. A lot of them have left. Like a lot of people left his community after like he goes through like multiple purges, I suspect, as people start realizing that he like lies a lot of the time. But yeah, he'll kind of collect and collect and collect from the different communities that he antagonizes, and then it usually blows up on his face eventually, and then it kind of like goes back. He's just like this weird, cringy, like I got bullied a lot in high school, so now I like bully people on the internet energy type, and he'll just obsess about you as long as you give him attention, basically.
Fortunately for me, I actually get off on like fucking arguing with people on the internet, so that's a positive for me. I look
All right,
forward to
well, you've got the next lol cow for the next little while.
I look forward to this back and forth, back and forth. Do you watch my debate with Destiny?
I saw you had a Hyundai and Destiny on. Was that the one that you're talking about?
No, there was a part two to that. So
Oh,
during the Allende Destiny one, I couldn't get a word in since those two were like really going at it. So
because I Hyundai monologues for like 10 minutes straight. Yes.
Allende monologues a lot for sure.
Yeah.
Uh, and then Destiny was antagonizing Allende, which would create even more monologues, and it was a vicious cycle. So yeah, that one was interesting. But no, I actually debated him directly about passport bros. So I'm curious what your opinion on that is. So my stance is that there's nothing wrong with men choosing to date in different marketplace, as long as it's not like underage girls or whatever. He seems to think that only men who are kind of sad and pathetic and can't really get laid in their home country feel the need to do that, and that there's no practical, tangible benefit to dating in a different country.
I definitely find that the men that I find who do like the geomaxing stuff, like you can do it well and you can do it cringily, right? And there's a lot of guys who I feel like take advantage of the fact that like America is viewed as this like kind of exotic, idealistic place, and white skin is often fetishized in different, like, especially like third world, second world countries. And they kind of like take advantage of that to like get with women that probably for the most part want them for like money and goods, and are not actually like romantically interested in them in any way. If they were in their own culture, they would probably still like not consider having sex with them. So it feels like prostitution light core, but I don't think sex work is bad. So I don't know. It's like it's a little weird. It's a little bit cringe if guys like try to use it as like this super mask thing. And it feels like a situation for like antisocial, perverse, incentivized men to take advantage of like low income women. But again, I don't know if you. I'm not gonna like yuck somebody's yum too hard. Like if that's what you're into, like I don't think it's the end of the world. But I don't think it's this like. I don't think it's something to brag about by any means. I don't think it's like this really impressive thing to be able to
It
do.
seems like you have a very similar position to Destiny. All right, so here's my
Shit!
counterpoint.
Oh,
There
you
are
guys are the same position. That's so annoying.
there, there. This is what I was trying to explain to him. There are practical, tangible benefits that don't involve like taking advantage of anybody to dating in certain other countries. So, for example, if we talk about reliability, like flaking doesn't really exist in Eastern Europe, right? So in America, you set up a date, there's a good chance you're going to get flaked on, which is like really frustrating. If you're dating in Eastern Europe, there's no such thing as flaky. That's one example. If you're looking, for example, for a woman who's like, has more traditional family values, right, which a lot of guys are, right, you're more likely to find that in places like South America or Eastern Europe. Once again, women are typically, on average, more feminine in those places, typically more supportive. So yeah, there's
Or
like
submissive specifically.
that's another one. Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
But a lot of guys like submissive women.
Yeah, no, I know. It's just like I don't know if I would be willing to characterize them as like just in general more feminine. I would say like specifically there's one element of femininity that they have more than in the Western women, which would be submissiveness.
Well, it's also that America and like countries like America, like Canada to some extent, kind of fuck with the idea of gender roles, right? Where it's like, it's almost like some women feel like, oh, I can't be like too feminine because that's gonna make me girly and shit. Versus like in most parts of the world, doesn't really exist. It's like, yeah, like I can be feminine. There's nothing wrong with that. I'm a fucking girl. God
Yeah,
damn it.
there's less like feminine carpe diem for sure. I would agree with that. There's like way less like women like coping about being feminine and just enjoying it. Like I think they'll just be more honest of like, yeah, like this is the role I want to occupy. I just also like I don't know. I've just known a lot of like international couples, like where one person's from like America and the other person's from like a different country, and it can work. It can work. Um, there's just a lot that has to go into it, I think, to make it work. And it feels like these guys, a lot of guys who are doing this, aren't going into it with this goal of like, how do I meet this other woman and make a relationship work really well for both of us? It feels a lot more like, how do I find somebody who can fit into the role that I want them to occupy so I can get what I want out of my relationship? And so it's like, I don't have a problem with people having international relationships. I don't qualm people for like looking elsewhere for partners. I think that all makes sense. I just think like it really depends on like what your intention is going into that situation.
Yeah, there could be a variety of intentions ranging from like I'm a 70-year-old man who wants to bang a bunch of 15-year-olds, right, to like that one extreme. And on the other end of the spectrum, it could just be like, you know what, I just want to meet a very nice Colombian woman who I can have a family with, and like I have such a big heart, and like like and then everything in between with guys who are like, yeah, I just want to like get laid without like with minimal games, or maybe I just want to like get into a few kind of casual relationships. Maybe I want to get into a moderate relationship and like everything in between.
Well, it's
So
just if you're going to a
motivations
country
are on the
that's traditional and you want a casual relationship, that's like antithetical to the culture. So like to get into casual sexual relationships in a much more traditional country, what are you doing? You're probably lying or like baiting and switching, or the women are hoping for something else, which like if you're upfront with her that it's casual and she's just hoping that her pussy's so good that she'll convince you, kind of like Western women are, that's a one thing. But if you're like lying about the prospects of her coming back home with you, and so you're getting into casual sexual relationships that like she otherwise in her traditional like worldview wouldn't get into, that's also a little bit weird. So like the casual sex guys going to these countries, I'm like, again, you can. I just I don't know.
But
It's just
I have a response to that. So I think you'd be
true.
right if we're talking about countries like China or maybe like Kazakhstan or like those types of or
Vietnam,
Armenia. Right, right. Yeah,
Thailand.
maybe Vietnam. I don't know. I've never been there. I can
Mhm.
speak on like South America and like Eastern Europe, which is places where I've traveled. So in places like Colombia, you kind of get the best of both worlds. Meaning, like the girls there are like very like down. At least most girls there are very down to have casual sex. Like there's no like real stigma against it or anything like that. But at the same time, they're also kind of traditional in other ways, like meaning like they'll cook and clean and like fucking just like give you a back massage for an hour and shit like that. So it's kind of like you get the best of both worlds almost in places like that, which is I think what draws a lot of guys in.
Yeah, sure. And again, like if that's like I can't speak to Colombia, so if that is actually the culture and it works really well for both people, again, I just want people to be happy. I don't care. Like I don't care how you want to organize your relationships. I just in my experience when I've known, and probably this is maybe the issue, I know a lot of international couples that are like a white guy with like more like an Eastern Asian woman, like from Cambodia or something in the Philippines a lot of the time. And when I look at their marriage, it's pretty clear that it was like a green card trade for her, which again,
Well,
you
yeah.
might be like, well, she's getting what she wants. Sure. I just don't know if the advice I want to give men is have women use you for a green card so that they can like grin and white knuckle bear through being in a relationship with you because they dislike you so much. Because that's a lot of the couples that I've like seen now, like the white guy with like the international wife who just like you can tell she just like doesn't like him. She won't divorce him because she's very traditional. They're often very Catholic and stuff like that, which is, you know, if that's your goal as a guy, that's fine. But I like look at that relationship and I look at the children out of those relationships and I'm like, God, like that's not the right orientation around relationship.
No, I agree. That is pretty cringe. Here's the difference because the guys you meet are probably guys who exported their foreign princess to their home country of Canada or America where you've traveled. Typically, the guys who are describing what I do, they know better not to actually bring the girl back to the States, or at least they very rarely do. So they will typically move to those places like Colombia or Eastern Europe and just live there and date there rather than like actually like bringing the girl back to the States because that completely takes away the whole possibility the girl's just using you for your citizenship, right? If that's not part of the bargain. And also, if your whole thing is like, I don't like Americanized women, well, like if you take a foreign woman and you bring her to America, she's going to become Americanized or to some extent. So yeah, like the guys who are talking about the stuff that I'm doing, they typically don't bring the girl back. They typically stay in that country.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, if you're staying in that country, then you're like keeping her around her culture, and I think that that's probably the best way to do it for sure. If she's like getting to stay connected to her community and culture, then she's basically getting the best of every world. Like she's getting probably a husband who makes a pretty good income, especially in like that area, and on top of that, I'm assuming that they're.
Nope. We lost Kyle. I guess she's having tech issues. Give her a second. I think she's having some technical issues. While we also wait for James to get here, I think he's going to be here in 15 minutes. And then we'll open up the panel. It's going to be a good time. All right. I don't see him. Okay. Okay. I dropped him the link. Yep. All right. Let's see what questions we have. Alex looking like a hottie today, not gonna lie. I know I did get a new haircut today. I went to a new place too. It's more expensive because my regular barber is in Colombia. Fucking dropped $80 on this haircut. But it looks pretty good. Also, my hair loss is starting to look a little better. And my fucking allergies have started to go away, sort of. My eyes don't look nearly as bloodshot as they usually do. Oh, stop. She didn't rage quit. Clearly tech issues. All right, let's bring her back. I see her backstage.
I'm dropping hit rates like crazy, and I have no idea why. So,
what's going on?
no idea. Nothing's different. My diagnostics look really good. My computer's just having an aneurysm for some reason.
Oh, okay, all good. What were we talking about? Oh, we were talking about the travel thing. Yeah.
Geomax.
Yeah. Also, another thing that Destiny had a really hard time wrapping his mind around is flaking. So I was like trying to explain to him about like, yeah, like, you know, like you get flaked on a lot in like Miami. He's like, wait, what? I was like, yeah, like, you know, like it's probably like, I don't know, maybe like 70-80% flake rate. He's like, no fucking way. That sounds miserable. So I think that what I politely pointed out to him is that like I feel like he's a little disconnected with what dating is like for the average guy because he's got that blue check mark, he's got that you know that YouTube fame and whatnot. Also fairly charismatic and charming dude. So yeah, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna do an experiment. We're gonna create a profile for Destiny on Tinder, and we're gonna set up dates, and we're gonna see what percentage of girls flake on him without actually saying that it's Destiny.
That's interesting. You should use a different picture or something. Oh, I guess you can't really do that. But yeah. Maybe do it outside of Miami, though, because there's a good chance people in Miami will know him.
I feel like he's pretty international, though. So if we go outside of Miami, it's still like the same. Wouldn't it be the same odds of like girls being recognized? Because he's not like Fresh and Fit, which is like tied to Miami. He's kind of like a virtual.
Do you mind if I just restart my computer? I'm sorry. My
Yeah, that's fine.
driver
That's
system,
fine.
as soon as I open this program, I'm just crashing like
Yeah,
hard.
that's fine. Yeah, do your thing. All right, cool. Let's do some Q&A, guys. Well, it's gonna be fun. So me and Destiny set up the cold approach challenge for next week. So that should be fun next Friday. So all right, so this weekend we got Jake versus Looks for L, and then there's probably gonna be a 2 or 3 day delay on the footage because it takes me time to do all that shit. And then next week we're gonna do Cold Approaching with Destiny. So we got a lot of good in-field content coming up. So I'm excited for that. Alex Ganser now has confirmed funding for the competition. Okay, cool. I mean, yeah, he just needs to man the fuck up and order the plane ticket, and then we can do it. I'm still down. I don't think he's gonna do it, but we'll see. Jump on Charisma King's live. He's live right now, bro. I mean, I can't just like jump on his live without like I haven't talked to. I mean, we're friends, but I haven't talked to him in like months. Will Destiny have his blue hair next week? Yeah, I believe he will. Okay. Gansar should go against Greg, not Alex. Yeah, I see. It seems like he really, really wants to go against me and Indian P. So I will oblige if he comes to Miami. Although, again, I think there's close to zero chance that that's actually going to happen. If I'm just being honest. Looks Pharrell will take the W, but I think it'll be much closer than BMAC round competition. I think you are probably correct, sir. Yo, Alex, hair chance will be in time for the Gangster competition or after? Definitely after. Also, I'm doing some like other stuff. I got this finasteride topical compounded medication. I got GHKCU, so I want to give that a few months to see how that plays out. Alex, what's more better, stoicism or having a smile on your face when talking with girls or life in general? Keep in mind that I mean that having a smile doesn't mean always laughing like me here. That's like a tough question. I don't know if you can like change your like if I try to smile all the time, I look like a jackass. So for me, it's like the stoicism is more like kind of in line with my personality. I think it more has to do with your personality and being in line with that. I don't think like if you're like a really smiley dude, you should try to be stoic and vice versa. Um, what happened to Master Researcher? Yeah, there might be some confusion. He might still be coming. We'll see. But James should be here any minute. I know you're not the biggest fan of him, Alice, but if Ganser versus competition could place, that would do crazy numbers. I don't actually think it would. No one really gives a shit about him. I think the looks for real competition will do better. Yeah, I think he'll do okay. But like, if it was like Rolo Tomasi or something like that, I would be willing to like put more effort into and like fly out and shit like that. But for like a nobody like him, like again, like I just yeah, like I'll do it in Miami. I'll take some time off, but I'm not actually gonna like fly to. I'm pretty sure Arctic Wolf is actually Ganstar because he says the same exact shit he does. But yeah, I'm not actually gonna fucking fly out and then pay for hotels and pay for flights for me and Indian P and my crew. It's just like ridiculous. The ROI on that would be like insanely poor. But he's more than welcome to do it in Miami. We can even do it in Fort Lauderdale or West Palm. It's so retarded to think that I control all of Miami. Like, I mean, it's kind of flattering if you think I'm that popular that I have that much influence. But the dude can literally, like, I can give him a list of bars and he can pick the bar last minute, So there's like so many alternatives to like make him feel that the whole thing is not rigged. The whole rig thing is just kind of a cringe conspiracy theory in general because it'll be like really obvious to tell on camera anyway. I think unless the girl's like a really good actress. So many like fucking like dumb ass like issues with that argument. But yeah, I'm okay with doing it anywhere where I can drive, like Fort Lauderdale, West Palm. That's all good. Yo, what up?
Oh, we'll see if this works. It's still not seeming to be working super great, so not sure what's going on.
What program are you using?
Streamlabs.
Streamlabs. Okay, OBS, right?
Yeah, it's an OBS software.
Okay. Yeah, I prefer StreamYard because it's lighter.
It is lighter, but the issue is StreamYards is super limited in like what you can do with it. Whereas I can stream StreamYards from OBS and I can stream like other shit.
Yeah, some like Inception type of shit. I got you.
Yeah, so we'll try this, see if it works, and then if it's still crashing, I'll just, yeah, it looks like it's still crashing. No
Yeah.
idea.
Do you want to try like exiting out of like everything on your computer, all the porn and whatnot?
I've fully restarted.
Okay, no more porn. Got it.
Yeah, no porn.
Let's see. Let's see how it goes. But anyway, so we were talking about the flaking thing. Yeah, I think that it's going to be interesting, and then also we're going to go out and film him doing cold approach for the first time, which I think is going to be a very interesting experience.
Yeah, that will be really interesting. I suspect that, yeah, that he definitely has like survivor bias because he is like blue check marked, and most of the women I think that he messes around with and sleeps with. God damn, my stream is literally unwatchable. It's so bad.
Damn.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just
Do,
horrible.
do you want to just like just stay on my end, or what do you want to do?
Yeah, I'll stay up on your end and I'll just have to redirect people to your stream, basically.
All right, I'm not going to complain about that. Uh, But what was this? Oh yeah, yeah. So I think also would be really fun to try, like as a part two to the Destiny experiment, is like after he does cold approach, like I come in like 2 minutes in and act like a fanboy, be like, "Oh my god, are you Destiny? Holy shit, this guy's so famous!" And like see what kind of a role does that play? Like
Yeah.
just like if a dude who's like, the girl, because I don't think most girls will recognize him, but then like if someone comes out and points it out, then the girls are going to be like, oh, let me see your YouTube channel. Oh, let me see your Instagram. So it's going to be really interesting to see how much of a role does like fame and clout play.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, I'm gonna guess that it's a lot. Um, so yeah. Hold on, I'm just gonna pin your link to your stream. Playing with fire. I don't know why it's like unbearable. All I can think is I had to update a driver, but I update this driver constantly because my computer is super fucked in one area.
Alex, have Destiny just dress like a bomb. I feel like it's a little too much. If Destiny really crushes it during the first night for the second night, we can try that. Although I feel like
Yeah.
Destiny like naturally doesn't really dress like super fancy.
Yeah, he's gotten a little bit more riz recently in his clothing for sure with the blue hair. The issue is he's got very good riz like with women. Like he's very, very charismatic.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think he has natural charisma. I feel like if Destiny learned like some pickup artist shit, that he would be like really fucking solid.
You think so? What pickup artist shit do you think he needs to learn?
Like there's just like some structural things, like some tactical mistakes that like I've identified. Like when he did that speed date on my channel, I'm trying to think like the stuff that I pointed out. One of them is that like he doesn't really have any like direction to his flirting, right? So he'll just like flirt with a girl and flirt, but it's not like really moving forward, right? So if I was his coach, I would teach him like, okay, once you get the girl laughing, now you guys start moving things forward. Either you can start moving things forward by setting up a date, or you can start moving things forward by making the conversation more sexual, or using a reframe and like using future projection, talking about you two hanging out. So like a lack of structure will probably be like the bigger one that I saw.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, I'm curious to see how it goes because he's kind of like virginal in pickup artist skill, and then it'll be a good test of how important pickup artistry skill is versus just like genuine, normal, like kind of natural charisma.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh, someone asked this. Destiny to speed date. Yeah, it was a few months ago. Just type in Destiny PWF speed date and it'll come up. Um, yeah, yeah, it'll be good. I think it's gonna be good content either way.
Yeah.
Oh, what was interesting about that debate I had with Destiny is that he did a poll on his channel about like what his like audience is. Do you know that he said 50 or 60% of his audience are incel virgins?
Really?
Yeah,
50?
50.
50?
One out of two.
Interesting. I wonder what my community is like. I'd be super curious. Do you know what yours is? Have you pulled it?
No, but I can do a poll. But I feel like a lot of people in my community will lie if they're
They're gonna
virgins.
cope. They're gonna for sure cope.
Let me control. Okay. Engage with your audience. Start a Q&A. No, wait. We need to do a poll. Start a poll. Are you a virgin? Virgin. Answer honestly, please. Okay, there we go. We'll find out in a few minutes. Sarah's a virgin, obviously. We can tell.
I heard Sarah made a really beautiful song the other day.
It was nice, yeah. Do you watch her channel?
Huh?
Do you watch her channel?
No. Ashley sent it to me.
It's pretty good. It's like a kind of like a I don't know, like a comedy roast of the Manosphere.
Isn't it just making fun of Greg for picking his nose and eating it?
No, that's just one of the things. There's more to
Oh,
it.
okay. That's the only one I've seen.
Right, yeah. Have you been following the drama between Greg and Ashley?
No.
Oh, it's been like really brutal.
Oh, what's the drama? Give me the tea.
I mean, I haven't really followed all of it. There's too much, but I think it started with a misunderstanding that happened in my chat because they're both mods on my channel, and that created a cycle where one of them attacked the other one attacked the other one. Then people's videos started getting reported. Then there was some doxing that happened. Then there was now potentially there might be some police shit getting involved or like restraining orders. It just keeps escalating. I tried to de-escalate it and like just like say like, yo, like why don't we all just have a call and see if we can de-escalate this? But yeah, one of the parties involved wasn't interested. So yeah, that's kind of where we're at right now. I just told them not to do it in my chat, and I can do it if I want.
Was the party not interested? Does his name start with a G and end with a reg?
Correct.
Oh no. Yeah, being a man child is tough. It's a tough life. The problem is, like the world does not have patience for men. It especially doesn't have patience for man children. Like it just can't do it. You can't get away. You can't be 27 and like still throwing temper tantrums. It just doesn't work.
But my defense of Greg would be is that he's like really new to YouTube. Like I'm just trying to think like what I would have done if I was like my first year at YouTube, and I think I would have done like a lot of dumb shit like that too.
Would you? Because this is like my first. I've just completed my first year of YouTube, and I haven't done any of that dumb shit. So I don't know. And we're around the same age.
Yeah, I guess. But I feel like women are less. Actually, no. Maybe it's different. Maybe
Sometimes you're so good faith, you're bad faith.
me.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We've coined a fallacy in my like community because we have a couple of people that are kind of like you that are like maximally always overly good faith to the point that like they'll steel man the other person's position to the point where I'm like, that's not happening. That nice thing you've given them as benefit of the doubt isn't happening. They're just being a piece of shit. And so we call it like the good faith fallacy.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because like on YouTube, like people like especially in the manosphere, which is a lot of like narcissistic, fucking selfish dipshits, right? Like people are like, oh Alex, you're such a good guy. You're like literally one of the few good people. But then when I look at like my family, right? My family is all like very nice, like happy, altruistic people, right? Like I'm considered like almost like the asshole in my family. That's like the running joke. Is that like I'm the selfish one in my family? So it really just depends on your basis of comparison. Because like again, like in my family, like I'm not the nice guy in my family. It's not that I act any differently. It's just that everyone in my family is so much fucking nicer than me. My girlfriend couldn't vouch for meeting my mom. Like she's like just really really nice people. But then like on YouTube, like where everyone's like a fucking dipshit, that makes me look nice. So I think a big part of it is just like who you compare yourself to.
I would say that you're like probably one of the best faith people, yeah, that I've met on the internet. I guess in like normie land, that's not like that high of a bar because most normal people are like decently good faith. But I would say even for normies, you're probably exceptionally good faith.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm kind of insulting you. It's kind of a backhanded compliment.
Is it? You're negative
Yeah.
a little bit?
Well, I said you're so good faith, you're kind of bad faith.
Okay, I'll take it. Not the worst thing I've been called. There was a dude last night who spent 2 hours attacking me about my nose. He seemed to have a real obsession with my nose. So I guess it's a big cause of conflict for his life. But he was just he just kept talking on and on and on. I think he was wasted about my nose and how it disturbs him and how I need to get it changed. And yeah, it was a good time. Good times on
Black
Ashley.
Pillar? It feels like something a black pillar would care a lot about.
I don't even know because this guy like refused to answer any direct question. The only thing we know about him is that he's a farmer, so I kept calling him Mr. Farmer.
What's his name?
I don't even know. Ashley, can you type in the chat if you remember his name? I don't think it's like a YouTuber or content creator or anyone. Yeah, we just know him as like the nose and chicken guy. But yeah, if you guys want, I see you guys in the chat saying that it's on Ashley's channel just last night. Just click that, and yeah, I jumped on for a few hours. Do you have any more plans to go on Fresh and Fit?
Well, Miami flight's pretty expensive from where I am specifically. So possibly, it really depends on like what we've got in our finances. I'm probably angling for the Whatever podcast right now, which is in Santa Barbara. So that would
Oh,
probably
wait, I'm going to be there too. When are you going on?
I haven't. I still need to contact them. Ali was just telling me about it and being like, just DM this person. I'm sure you can get on. So it's no guarantees. I'm just saying I'm
Okay.
gonna bug them the way I bugged Fresh and Fit to get on, and hopefully it'll work out. So, when are you going on?
We're planning for late spring, so like May or something. But we don't
Okay.
have a whole date set up yet.
Oh, maybe I should message them and see if we can pair, and then we can tag team.
Yeah.
Unless you don't want to. Not that I need to steal your thunder, but
No, I'm down. I'm down. Yeah, I think they're good. I think that I like them much more than Fresh and Fit.
really,
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I feel like they're much more like I feel like the whole point of Fresh and Fit, honestly, is just like dunk on girls and just like
yes.
make girls look bad. Versus for them, I feel like even though they have some like kind of weird takes, they're interested in having a discussion. They're not like
Some of the
doing
behind the scenes comments I've heard from people have been very funny to me.
oh really? Like no, dude.
Yeah, just people commenting that like they don't really seem sentient because they're like so stupid, but I don't know, that might just be a couple of people's perspectives.
Well, there we go. I don't think you're getting on now.
Yeah.
Damn it.
Hey, I think fighting words is good. They have to bring on women who disagree with them that are smart because that'll be like the first criticism that they get. So, you got to do it. Not that they have to bring me on, obviously, because there's lots of intelligent women that they could bring on.
Do you have any plans to go on Valuetainment? Have you ever thought about that?
I haven't. I don't know. What's the appeal of Valuetainment? Is it like don't you have to like contract with them and stuff like that?
No. I've been on there a few times. They do so. There's like different parts of Valuetainment. The part that you would go on would be Saucecast, the part that I was on. But
With
there's
like Pearl and Destiny, right?
yeah, that was I did it twice. One of them was with Pearl and Destiny. But yeah, they just
Okay.
set up like really interesting discussions with people, and they like kind of
Yeah.
play with advocate.
Yeah,
Uh,
I actually really like their conversations. I really like Valuetainment. I've been quite impressed with the conversations that they're able to facilitate.
yeah. You should definitely email them.
Okay, I'll add that to my list of people. Yeah, being Canadian sucks. It's just like so expensive to go anywhere. So, and none of these places are together. It'd be nice, like next time I go to Miami. Now that I know you, I'm gonna be like, I should probably try to hit like every podcaster I know now who's in Miami, so that I can just like get the most bang for my buck. If I'm gonna
Yeah,
pay for
I mean
it.
it's a 45-minute drive from Miami. Okay, I got the results. So 30% of my chat is virgins.
And what percent is copium?
Probably another 10% or so.
Just 10. Okay.
I don't know. It's hard to say, but yeah, damn, that's more than I expected, honestly.
Yeah. Really? You thought you would
let me
have
see
had more success?
let me see where James is. Ready? Have you been on Modern Day Debate?
No, he messaged me once about bringing me on, and then it just like didn't work out with scheduling, and we've never organized since then. I really like his like moderation style and stuff. I really like his debates.
Yeah, he's good. He's definitely very fair and he's chill. He brings on some pretty crazy mofo's, but he stays unbiased, which I
Yeah,
respect.
I really like his platform quite a bit. I would like to go on. I think that would be fun. Be fun to do like a 2v2 on Modern Day or something like that.
Yeah, I'm sure you can set it up after this. Alex, I think guys like Myron and some other red pill gurus, excluding Tate, seem insecure. They always try to demean women and never ends up being good. In my opinion, is that a good way to get girls? Definitely not a good way to get girls. I don't think that girls are attracted to like being demeaned. Uh, yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts on this?
There's some girls that are into it. The issue is some girls can't tell the difference between being demeaned at versus being like teased in a fun, flirty way, right? Like I think some girls like have enough like emotional damage basically where like when a guy's actually just being kind of mean, they can't tell the difference between that and like a guy who's like teasing them in like a flirty, lighthearted way. And so I think like they'll misread the demeaning as like a confident guy who's kind of like flirting with them when it's like, there's a lot of like yellow to red flags here that she just like kind of doesn't see because of like probably stuff. So it works for some girls. It's just like usually not, I don't know. It's probably not a good thing to do. Probably makes you kind of a shitty guy to do. And also, I don't know if it's attracting the type of women that you want to settle down with necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I was watching. I did a live reaction to one of their recent whatever kickouts, but I feel like at this point it's like almost like a meme at this point. The girl was like literally like, "Okay, I'm sorry, carry on." He's like, "Don't tell me what to do at my show." And she's like, "Sorry." He's like, "Your final chance." She's like, "Okay, that's it. You're done." It's almost like a meme. Like what? Like at one point, Myron was like, "Sit there and only talk if you're being talked to, like a dog or something like that." I'm like, Jesus Christ! Like this is like just becoming next level, like fucking raging. But yeah, I just always felt like Myron is just like a super duper like bitter dude who just got like bull pushed around way too much in dating marketplace when he was younger, and now he's just like kind of like taking it out on like random chicks on this podcast, which I don't know like how long that's going to go for because I feel like at some point he's going to have to realize that's not really doing anything for his self image. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's my take. What would you say like you were treated well when you were over there?
Yeah, they were super respectful. I don't know. Myron is actually like, for somebody who I would say I have like such a polar opposite worldview of, he's been probably one of the better faith interlocutors. Like he was always good faith with me. Like we disagreed and we got like pretty like back and forth and quick with each other. But it was like he never tried to do like the slimy thing where like I would say something and then he would just turn it into, and he'd be like, so you're saying this? And it's like, no, I'm literally not saying that. So it's super good faith. And then we went out for food afterwards. And again, we disagreed on basically every topic, but he was super respectful. Talked a lot about being like, I really appreciate that you're like a really smart girl. It's really nice to have like intelligent women on the podcast, stuff like that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of that is because you're another content creator though.
I'm not sure because he didn't realize I was connected to Destiny until I think afterwards, because they weren't even going to put me at the table at first. They were going to like sit me on the couch, and then I was like, "Yo, bro," I like had to talk to like their producer guy and be like, "Chris, like we've DM'd like quite a bit now about this. Like I'm the Canadian girl. I told you I was coming with Destiny. I'm not fucking sitting." I didn't say this obviously, but I was like, "Can I like not be on the couch?" And then he was like, "Oh, okay, yeah." And then they did listen. Like, kudos to them. They did listen and put me at the table. So I'm super grateful for that, obviously, because that would have been a waste of like $1,200. Not that I shouted myself out, because I'm still a fucking idiot. And the entire time I didn't shout out my channel. The entire time. So that was great. But
My favorite part is when Fresh and Fit asked the girls to name 3 countries. Yeah, that's pretty funny. I mean, like the point they're trying to prove is that the average girl is dumb, which, like, okay, I get it. There's a lot of dumb girls in Miami. Although I
I
feel
just
like,
feel like this proves the point that they don't get the average woman on there. Like, I'm sorry. Most girls in America, I'm sure, can name 3 countries. Like, look up,
sure,
look
yeah,
down, and find one across the ocean, and you've got 3. Like, it's not even that. Especially if you're allowed to list US, you just look up, down, and yourself, and you got 3, you know?
sure, yeah. I mean, it's a typically, with the exception of other content creators, it's a very special type of girl that goes on Fresh and Fit. It's not like your average working girl. It's like this, like random, like I sit around all day and like try to make it big off Instagram type of chick.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of Instagram models and stuff like that, right? So they're definitely not, like, selecting for, like, women who are pursuing education. And I think most women who are pursuing education probably wouldn't subject themselves to that.
Erudite, don't forget to mention they thought you were Melina.
Yeah, at first they tried to sit me beside Destiny because they thought I was his wife, and then I was like, they were like, "Here, you sit here," and I was like, "I think probably his wife should sit here." So I like stepped back, and then Melina like took that spot, and then like, "Okay, you go on the couch," and I was like, "Brah!" So yeah,
Funny.
that was funny. Yeah, but no, they were like for the most part, especially like Myron and Fresh himself were like super super respectful. Multiple members on their team were really lovely. There's like a couple that were like meh, mostly like one, and everyone else was like quite good for the most part. They
Let me
didn't have
guess. Let me
drinks
guess.
or anything
Chris.
like that.
Chris is the meh one.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's what I've heard.
yeah.
Uh, Alex, I think Tate is like a genius. He always finds a way to beat the chicks with words, still find a way to gain the respect. His game is just purely things and Kane Rand's pure risk. Yeah, I
I
think
don't know if you could use Pearly things as like a good example of Riz. She's definitely going to be biased to like him. Just like I'm not the best test for like Destiny's Riz because like we're clearly friends and get along and agree with each other. So
yeah, that's true. I do feel like though that Tate is like very charismatic. Would you agree with it?
for sure. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to say it's not. He's clearly extremely charismatic.
Yeah, I feel like he handles himself like at least publicly like very different than Fresh and Fit does.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
he's more of like the James Bond character who's like, oh, don't worry about that, mate. You know, like fucking chill. Versus
Well,
Myron is more of like the middle school. Like
He plays the game, right? He'll play whatever game he needs to. Whereas like Myron has a lot of like founding principles of like ideology that he kind of has to hold to. Whereas like Andrew Tate's kind of like, you want me to be a father figure now? Now I'm a doting father who loves his children. I don't give a fuck, whatever's gonna like sell and appeal. Which is like smart. Like he's definitely, when it comes to like business and stuff like that, like I don't think anyone would say that he's not like smart with his business. The issue is he ethical with his business?
Sure.
Yeah.
Alex, why are you acting if you weren't friends with Myron at one point? I wasn't friends with him. We went out like once or twice, twice at most. But yeah, I was never friends with him. I was like acquaintances with him. But yeah, we weren't like hanging out on a regular basis. Like far from that. I don't know where this notion that we were like BFFs is coming from.
Yeah. Yeah, and then the whole sex trafficking stuff has probably not been so good for business. So.
Oh well, I'm talking about Myron now, not Tate. I've never been friends with Tate either. I know him very loosely. Erudite, whom would you debate with on psychology and mental health, Destiny or Tate?
Either. Like I have to pick one? Like who would I prefer to debate with? Probably Tate, because me and Destiny would agree on most things.
Wow.
So the problem with me and Destiny debating on things is that like we're both pretty good faith, we're both pretty reasonable, and we mostly have the same worldview. So our arguments just become very boring quickly because we're like, okay, yeah, I agree, that's fair, that's reasonable.
There he is. What's up, buddy?
Hey, sorry I'm late.
That's okay.
It's all good. Good to
Thanks
see
for having
you.
me, James.
Yeah, this
Glad
is
to meet
NotsoErudite. This is James.
Glad to meet you, finally.
Yeah, I know, it's been so long. It's been long overdue in this space.
Yes. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, dude. You don't venture outside of your channel that often, eh?
I don't. I don't get invited very often.
Oh no, because you're the host. Everyone assumes you're gonna invite them.
Well, that, or I mean, I don't know if it's like being the host, like it's like my job to like not have an opinion. So I don't know if they wonder if I don't have opinion, like if they suspect it, like I don't know if you have anything to say. But some things I definitely enjoy. As you know, Alex, I have watched some of your content. I've even asked you for advice. So not a lot, but I definitely, there are some topics that are fun and juicy, and your content, Alex, is a lot of it is very juicy and fun for me personally.
Thanks. I try to put out the juiciest content I can.
Very juicy.
Some juicy
shit. Well, we should get into some of your opinions then today. I'm curious to know. I mean, the fact that nobody thinks you have opinions means you're doing your moderation job super well.
I'm sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Well, last time I definitely talked about it is harder for men. I know this not, although there is some psychology research that I could cite. So I also know it from personal experience as being a 36-year-old dude, that we talked last time about women are much more selective. And there's an old phrase that's now it's becoming old already. It's been around for even just a little bit, that women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of relationships. But I think we talked about last time, that's not quite true. It's a little bit more precise. It's that I do think women are the gatekeepers of sex, but when it comes to the relationships, you could say that the top 10% of men are the gatekeepers of relationships. The other 90, women don't even want, or at least maybe not 90, but let's say 80, 70, women don't really even want a relationship with them anyway. So it's not like they have that much power. And not only that, but when you look at divorce stats, in terms of, you could say the opposite side of the gate of marriages, in terms of like gatekeeping, women are divorcing men at way higher proportions. Now, it's not to say that men are like guilt, or, that women are just being hard on men. There's evidential reasons that men are actually deserving of being divorced because, for example, they have higher rates of antisocial personality disorder. So that's maybe one reason why they do get divorced more often. But it's also, I think, that it is true that women are more selective. And so generally speaking, yeah, there's some truth to the idea that women are, or I should say that some men are gatekeepers of relationships. But even then, there's a high extent that women still are too.
Yeah.
I think it comes down to with the relationships, who's more willing to walk away. So if it could be the girl, right? The girl could be more willing to walk away. She just needs the guy less, or it could be the other way around. And whoever is more willing to walk away is the gatekeeper of the relationship, basically.
Right. Do you guys want to know a study? This is something that though Alex, you've warned me not to do this.
James, I didn't know you were a nerd.
Oh, you can do
a
it.
total nerd. This is the last year of my doctorate in psychology. So
It looks like you're in a lab. It looks like a psych lab energy. Are you in a lab right now?
No, it's just my office, but it is definitely so this is a fun little study where, have you guys heard about this? This is like no ethics review board. I don't know if they'd ever like let this fly anymore. Is that I think it was in the 70s. They had male and female Confederates, so these college students, that they were rated by groups beforehand, namely on how attractive they are, because they wanted to make sure that they were rated as like roughly the same. So they're both, let's say, an 8. Now, one's a male, one's a female. And they go up to people on campus, and there's 3 conditions. So, on one half of all of these conditions, you have it where it's the male Confederate, and by Confederate, I just mean like an actor, not like a old Civil War soldier. So they're a person.
They didn't hate black people. They were just helping out in the study.
Right. So they basically, it's a male, and let's say they're an 8 out of a 10. So they're like good looking, but like they're no George Clooney. Then you also have a woman Confederate, and they're college age, and they're going up to their peers on campus. And in the first condition, they each say to 100 people of the opposite sex, hey, I've noticed you on campus, and just want to say I think you're attractive, and I want to see if you want to go on a date with me, like let's say Tuesday night. So it's a few days out. Have you guys heard of this?
Nope.
No.
Okay, this is real. I've taught this in my general psych classes. The second condition is where each of them, like again, they're going up to separate, different sets of people. They're of the opposite sex, and they say, "Hey, I've noticed you." So it's exactly the same. Where they say, "Hey, I've noticed you. I think you're attractive. I want to see if you might want to have sex with me tonight." And then in the third condition, it's everything's the same. Hey, you're attractive. I've seen you. And they say, I want to know if you want to have sex with me right now. So we're going to go somewhere and have sex. And do you want to know, do you know what the percentages are in terms of, the first one might surprise you, in terms of what percent of men or women say in response to the opposite sex Confederate that approach them, say, yes, like I'll date you. I'll go on a date on Tuesday night.
I would venture to say that men asking women, maybe like 5 to 10% of women said yes. Women asking men, maybe like 50 to 60% of men said yes.
And I might have like misled you to think that. I didn't mean to, but I get why you'd think that, because we just talked about, like, women are more selective. It wasn't quite that skewed. I'll give you not so erudite if you had any speculation.
Oh no, now I've had the hint. So if I'm right, it's not going to be a real win. I'm going to speculate that men probably slightly said yes more than women, but I'm going to guess it wasn't statistically significant, or it was like a very, very small significance.
Okay, so let me pull it up because this has got the exact percentages. So I've got the study in front of me because it's hard for me to remember the exact, but I would think, like Alex, that's what the intuitive thing, like once you're a little bit red-pilled and you come to realize like women are a little bit more selective. Although, Alex, I bet you know why it might be surprising. So I think I have it here. Surprisingly, it's actually like a pretty good chunk of both of the sexes. I can't remember the exact percent. And this paper in front of me, I don't have it highlighted but it was a pretty good proportion where actually I think here it is. So table 1, study number 1, this is 1978, percentage of compliance with each request. For the males and the females, Alex, you are right in this. In terms of the date, just being asked for a date, 56% of men say yes. But surprisingly though, like still a pretty good proportion, 50% of women say yes.
Okay, I think there's one key thing. You said 1978. So I was thinking, I think the dating marketplace back then was totally different. I think now if they recreated that, the numbers would be a lot lower. I'm going off like, I've seen some like YouTube experiments where it's basically like going up to 100 girls, asking them if they want to have sex with me, and then a girl going up to 100 guys asking if they want to have sex with me. So basically, and they pick good looking people. So when the guy went up to 100 girls, only one of them agreed to sex. And then when the girl went up to a guy, like 45 or 50 of them agreed to sex. So I think, but I can totally see how that would be the case in like the 70s for sure.
Good point. I'm glad you said that because it is. I think Tinder and other dating apps have changed the game vastly.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on that? Not so. Do you go by Not So Erudite or do you have a first name?
Kyla works too, whichever you prefer.
What was it?
Kyla.
Kyla. Okay, I
Kyla.
only say that because Not So
Kyla.
Erudite is so wordy.
That's true.
It's
you can
so
also call me
long.
Erudite.
Okay, Erudite. What do you think percentage-wise, or I should say, any speculations on like why it's kind of like where you're like, oh, like okay, that's what I expect, or maybe wouldn't expect, like contextual factors.
I'd be curious to know. I suspect it's going to be actually similar even now. Might be a little bit, it would probably be a little bit greater disparity, but it would probably be closer than a lot of red pill think. The issue is the guys would probably actually show up for the date and the girls probably wouldn't. That would be my suspicion, is that girls would say yes. Because I think a lot of girls have this idea that like, we've been fighting about this in my community for like weeks now, that like it's scary to say no, that men will like get violent if you say no. So a lot of women will kind of say yes and then opt to like passively reject by like ignoring or ghosting, or they'll like offset by saying that they have like a boyfriend, right? So like I'd still suspect the numbers to be closer even in modern day, but that a lot of the girls would no show.
Oh, that's smart too. Go ahead, Alex.
I should recreate. I mean, this would be a lot of fucking work, but it could be a good video. Recreate this study to some extent and go up to girls and ask what percentage of them would want to go on a date with me. I could do like a normal guy versus a Chad, and then get like a good looking guy and see what the difference would be.
You can't have a camera in their face, or it's going to confound the results.
Have a what?
You can't have a camera in their face.
Oh no, I wouldn't. We would use a hidden camera. Yeah.
Okay. Based.
Oh, I think that's actually a good idea. I'm gonna write this down. Fuck yeah.
It's super fun. But yeah, these are good. These are both good points. One, 1978, super dated. Things are different. I think that in response to that, Alex, and then what you said as well, Erudite, I'll mention in just a moment. But in response to what you said, Alex, yeah, I think that it's inflated for the women, or well, not inflated. I mean, that's the way it was back then. Back then, like women didn't have access to the top tier males as easily as they do today through dating apps. Like dating apps, women can be more selective. And that's how you have this crazy funneling where it's like the top 20% of men are getting 80% of the attention from women. It's because like, well, yeah, like in the past, back then, they didn't have these apps where it could be so easily for women to like not the only way, but way more commonly, the more conventional way was that if women were going to be with those guys, it's because the top level guy approached them or whatever it was, made a move, you could say. But that's not super common because it is like, even for the most confident guys, like maybe they think that they can get any girl that they want, but they also realize like if you're at the gym and you're going up to talk to maybe not every woman, but maybe like once a week you go up to a woman, you're going to have a reputation eventually. So anyway, I think that's one thing. And then Erudite, you said something that's really interesting, and I think it's totally true, is that the yeses are totally inflated because women, they're just like, they maybe want to say no more often, but they feel like they're like, I don't know if I should. So it's just be nice, and then I'll flake later. Good point. I hadn't thought of that.
All right, let me phrase the question like this. If I went up to 100 girls and just said, hey, I thought you were really cute. Do you want to go on a date with me? What percentage do you think would be yeses?
Let's see. The biggest thing that's hard for me is that I'm thinking about, it's true, Not So Erudite's point still applies, both in the 70s, and I think it applies today. Some of them are going to be like, okay, I'll just say yes, and if I don't like them, I'll just flake later. And then I'm also thinking about the Tinder effect of like, you're a good-looking guy, Alex. You're blonde. That seems to score a lot of points. And then you're fit. You've got good things going for you. But like, are any of us George Clooney? Like, so it's like, you're good. I don't know. Like, is it going to be 50? I don't know.
I speculate it would be between 5 and 10%.
It's hard out there. That's what I'm thinking too. So,
I mean, I could definitely increase it if I like, instead of saying, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? I like, I chat the girl up and stuff. I could bring it up to like 20, 25%. But like, with just like, hey, do you want to go on a date with me? I think it would be like it'd be 5 to 10%. Some girls will say yes, but most girls will say no. But the interesting part is if we take a Chad, I'll just catch one in the wild. I actually have a few Chads on retainer that I keep in my basement. seeing what success rate they will have. And I speculate it's not going to be as high as the Black Bullets think it is. Now, of course, they will cope and say he wasn't Chad enough. His gonial angle wasn't the perfect 45 degree of Chadness or whatever. But I think the Chad will get maybe like a 20% success rate, 10 to 20%.
I can believe that. Erudite, what did you think?
So I have an issue with hypergamy data. Like that OkCupid study, which is where the 80-20 comes from, is a really shit study. Like really shit. Because it's not actually a study, it's a survey done by OkCupid. And the problem is that like the reality is that it's more like the top 10% of women are matching with all the top 10% of men, and then like not a lot of people are like women are matching with lots of people, but like almost no one is actually going on dates from Tinder, because almost everyone, even still, is mostly meeting people through their friend groups. And so I suspect like part of this like the Pew study that came out with the 60% of men are like single and not looking and not casual, I suspect it has a lot to do with the fact that like there's this massive crisis of loneliness amongst men. Like men increasingly don't have friend groups, they're increasingly disconnected from their community, and therefore they're not meeting women in the way that basically everyone is still meeting their partners, which is through friends and like in hobbies and like workspaces. And so like, I don't know, I'm not satisfied with the OkCupid study. I think it implies this hypergamy that isn't as accurate, because dating apps like OkCupid force women to select men along a metric that they don't actually care that much about, right? Like the only thing that you can care about on a dating app is basically their looks, because the rest could just be lies and there's literally no way to tell. Even the photos could be lies, but at least like they're probably, as long as they look kind of the same, they're probably somewhat accurate. And so like this is why like women are on dating apps, right? 30% of that people on dating apps are women. And so I think it speaks more to like, are women actually like this hypergamous creature that are like always searching for like the higher value male? Or is it just that like women aren't really on dating apps in general, and the women who are probably like more open to just like general casual sex? And of course, if women want casual sex, they're going to get the hottest guys, because that's like the sweetest deal for a lot of guys, is just having casual sex. So like in that way, in casual sex, there's probably this hypergamy emerging. The issue is that like most women are looking for long-term dating strategies. And so I don't know, I'm just dissatisfied with all of this research. I think it's a really unfair way to characterize both like women and what they're looking for.
I think that's a fair point. But I'm curious. So what about for the last part, for the have sex? What was the data on that?
Well, here it gets pretty juicy. This is where like the totally diverges. So the sex of the requester, the person that's going up and making the offer, if it's male, well, I'll start with female, that's more interesting. Now here's what's interesting too. Remember, for dating, if it's the female going up and saying, hey, you want to go on a date, 50% of men said yes. Now if she says like, hey, you want to come to my apartment tonight and have sex, what percent of men would you
it's
get?
up. It's way up. It's gotta be like 60, 70. Men are so sociosexual. Men are just like, God, I put my dick in it. Yes.
That's that old Chris Rock skit where he says that women get offered sex all the time, but when men do, it's like, it's my lucky day. So
they're like, did I get the lottery today? What?
Alex, any guesses?
I think it's probably a little bit lower. So I think maybe 40%.
It's actually surprised. Because I'm a little surprised, because I'm like, you'd think it'd be like, well, it'd be higher, but I mean, maybe it is like that thought of like, well, I better jump at this opportunity. Like, oh, it's 69%. So,
yes.
Yeah. So nice. It goes up, which is, I think it has to be like Erudite said, like, can't pass. You have to strike while the iron's hot. This chance isn't going to happen all the time. Now, for women, though,
I wonder if the researchers had a little giggle when they found out the number was 69.
Might have been.
They probably did. That's for sure. That was for sure a nerd meme. Oh, now, God, sex. Imagine having that.
For women, when the male requests it, like, hey, I think you're really attractive. Do you want to have sex with me? Like, basically, they say, come to my apartment and have sex tonight. What percent of women do you think said yes?
I'd be more curious what percent of women like called like their like non-complaint police line and was like, there's a really weird guy like employing women for sex tonight. I'm guessing it went way down.
I would say between 5 and 10%.
Wow, right on the money. Okay, so it's 6%.
Woo!
Drops drastically. And then for the, hey, you want to have sex right now, like come to my college bed or dorm room.
It went down.
It was, yeah. So females, when it was the female requester, it actually, well, I'll just spoil it. It jumps up again. It goes to 75%.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
So men, again, like you have to strike while the iron is hot. Like,
so they in the one before they were like, she's probably lying. I'm not gonna risk getting ghosted later. Nah, I'm good. And so if they were like, if it's right now, fuck yeah. And I'm guessing for women, it's got to be like.
Did they get to see like a photo of the girl? Like, how do you know what the girl looks like?
Oh, she's like walking up and right.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Confederate. Yep.
Yeah. Do we get to see what the girls look like? Because I wonder, like.
I wish, but all I remember is that it said like they're considered like attractive. Like you could say like a B grade in terms of letter grades.
Dude, I'll give you guys
and balanced against each other to find that similarly rated
Yep.
attractiveness.
So they're all things equal.
But a really overweight, obese old lady will still get more matches on Tinder than a Giga Chat. I'm gonna give you guys a sneak preview of an experiment video that we're gonna drop soon. Okay, so
I like
we took photos of my mom, and then we used FaceApp to make her look older, right? So it made her look like a lady in her 70s. We created a Tinder profile with her consent. My mom's cool with it, to see how many matches she would get. In 48 hours, she got 1,000 likes.
Holy moly!
Do you want to see how like?
I believe it. Yeah.
Yeah, I do.
I'll actually pull up a photo.
But this is the issue. A lot of guys' strategy at this point is like the reverse. So like all women's strategy on, like if you watch a woman on Tinder, she's like the most antisocial human. She's just like, no. Most guys I know are the opposite, where it's like, yes. They're probably not even looking at the girl that they're swiping right on.
That's a good point. Oh, okay. I hadn't thought of that. That probably skews those study results. I know you only mentioned OkCupid, but I don't know about this. Like I'll defer to you because I haven't read about it. Although, but yeah, that I thought there was more than one study that like suggested like an 80-20 proportion, but I don't know that for sure. And I would say this: I like the points you made, Erudite, because I think that sometimes, I think this is at least my error, is you fall off the opposite side of the horse. Namely, I was in this blue pilled mindset for so long that when I started to realize some of the red pill is true, you kind of go a little bit too far with it. And you're like, yes, 80-20, exactly.
Makes sense.
I think you're right, Erudite, that it's not that like.
So it is and it isn't, right? The issue is a lot of these studies are viewing courtship through a male gaze, like fundamentally, like as much as men like make fun of women for doing this, because women manifest all the time, and women will tell men like, this is what we want, and it's like, no you don't. And women will like say like, men just want a girl who's like nice, and it's like, nah, guys just want like a cute girl. Like, let's be honest, that's the main thing they're selecting for. Like as much as like women put a woman's gaze on like dating and relationships onto men do the same shit. And I think a lot of these studies kind of imbue that, where like they'll talk about like dating up as far as like looks and like income or something like that. But the issue is that, like, first of all, in the case of like casual sex, of course women can date up, because in general, women aren't super interested in casual sex because it's a much higher, like, I don't know. I just think being penetrated in general is probably a much more intimate experience. It's much more vulnerable in a lot of ways, right? And
so
Alex is like, when I got penetrated in my asshole, it was the most freeing moment of my life. And so, I don't know. When I think about dating up, what we actually see is like both genders are dating up based on what they value. Women date up in age and stability markers, income, college education, that sort of thing. That's what they tend to select for, which is why, like, if you jump to the 30s age on the Pew Research, most men who are in their 30s are doing a lot more successfully with women, and they're often dating women younger and more attractive than them because men are selecting for that. So in many ways, men are dating up as well. They're getting more young, more attractive partners, which is what men want. And women are getting the older, more stable factors. The issue is this really sucks for old women and young men because nobody fucking wants them, right? So if you actually look at the Pew Research, the rates of singleness among young women and young men, it's like 60-30. The rates of singleness amongst old men and old women, it's almost inverse completely. It's 20-50, right? 50% of old women are single while 20% of old men are single. And so like we see this thing where like this idea of dating up is weird to me, especially because like men are just assuming women want casual sex, and it's like, okay, yeah, when it comes to casual sex, women can date up. The issue is that's not what women want anyways. I don't give a shit about that. So you're interested in eating a different meal, like they're vegans and you want meat.
I somewhat agree with you. I do think both genders date up. Yeah, that is true. I think what it comes down to though is women
Just grab
who have a
water.
lot more options have a lot more of an ability to date up. So if you're like, if you're like a chick who's a 5, like you're getting thousands of matches on Tinder a day, like you can date up with a 7 or 8 versus for the average guy, dating up isn't really an option. So I think that just has to do, but yeah, I do agree that both genders want to date up. I think in terms of the young guy, it's not like there's something like attractive about like an old geezer to women, just money. So and status. So if you can be a young guy who has like money and status, like a DJ or something like that, like you're gonna do better than the old fucking rich dude. I think so. I think that's a red herring a little bit to look at age for men, but for women, absolutely yes. Like the older you get, kind of the harder it is in the dating marketplace. But even like just like seeing this video, like we made my mom look like she's 65. She's still getting thousands of Tinder matches. Like it's just like I don't know. I still feel like
It's super frustrating. I understand men's frustration. The issue is women don't want what you're looking for, right? Men are frustrated because they're interested in getting sex, which is fine. I have no problem with that. The issue is that's not what women are interested in. So women are frustrated because they're out there trying to get they're trying to get a hubby, right? They're trying to like settle down and find a guy to like most women, even this is your advice. If a woman will sleep with you, she'll for sure date you because when she's sleeping with you, there's a goal in part that she'll date you, right? And when you listen to like the whatever podcast girls, I think are a really good example of like this more like normal type of girl where they're like, yeah, I sleep with guys, but usually the goal is that we'll be stable or we're like fuck buddies, but there's like some level of commitment. And a lot of girls, if you like get them really honest, are like, yeah, I'm kind of hoping that he'll like settle down with me eventually, or that like over time we'll like become a little bit like more committed to each other. And so like I understand it. I'm not dismissing guys' struggles ever, right? I don't do that. The issue is that it creates this skew in the paradigm where men feel like they're being left out of eating at the table. And the issue is that everyone's not eating. The issue is that we want different food. We've got like vegans and like meat eaters. And so like they're both kind of starving a little bit.
Yeah, but I feel like that's a little. I mean, I think if we're talking about like averages, you're correct, but I think it's a little bit of too much of a caricature. Like I coach a lot of men, and like you would think with like the way that my channel's like so like hookup oriented that like pretty much every guy comes to me wants like fuck buddies, right? But that's not true. I found that like maybe 1 out of 3 guys who do coaching with me, they actually want to get into a relationship or they want to get married. 1 out of 3 want just casual sex, and 1 of 3 want something in the middle where they want to maybe get like a fuck buddy or two. They want to be some like a midterm relationship, right? So like I think this idea that like just like most men are just trying to like bust a nut isn't really true from what I've seen. That would be the first thing. And also the second thing is that like every girl wants a relationship. Sure, more women want relationships than men, but like I've just met enough girls who are just like, yeah, like I just want to fuck around, like I just want to have some fun. I want to get like typically what women are not going to do is run through a bunch of guys. They're typically going to find 2 or 3 good fuck buddies that they can kind of hang out with. They're typically not gonna, so their sexual strategy might be different. But I met quite a few women who were just like, yeah, like I'm just looking to have some fun. But there's also social pressure on women. So like to say that on a podcast is kind of like
Yeah.
a little iffy in terms of her social reputation. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, plus like a lot of girls are going to be motivated. Like guys are going to get spooked by like girls who are like, "Oh, wedding time," right? Like put some babies in me, which like not that girls are actually saying that. It just like seems in general, like even what you described, having 2 to 3 fuck buddies might be the case, right? I suspect that that's probably more sociosexual, but like I'll even just grant you, maybe like women have 2 to 3 fuck buddies. I'm going to guess that they're hoping that one of these fuck buddies will eventually become something a little bit more stable and committed over time. That would be my guess, right? Otherwise, why is she fucking you?
Well, because I think a lot of women just like sex.
Yeah, but like none of the stats ever show that. None of the research shows this. Nothing shows this. If women just like really want sex.
But like what research are you referring to?
The Pew studies, major meta-analysis of sex having amongst like people in general, like sex having, even for women, is just going down. Just everyone's having a lot less sex.
Sure, but I would just be like anything that revolves like polls or studies asking women. Like I just think a lot of women are gonna have a hard time saying, "Hey, I just want sex. I don't want anything more." Like that's just like not a popular position for a woman to take,
Yeah,
even in
for sure.
2023.
For sure. It's not a super popular position to take, but it's also not a popular position for people on like podcasts, for example, to say like, oh yeah, I'm just trying to like fuck a guy to convince him to like put a baby in me so I can trap him in a relationship. That's also not a good thing to say publicly, right? So they're gonna like allude to being like, yeah, like I have a couple of friends and like, yeah, like we're seeing, but like you can tell there's an element of like commitment that they're probably looking for. Yeah.
Well, sometimes people are in the middle and they like kind of shift as they interact with someone. Like I was kind of like that. Like I was open to the idea of having a girlfriend, but I wasn't looking for one. And
Yep.
like a lot of people are just like kind of going with the flow with like, hey, I'm open to a relationship, but I don't need one. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't.
Yeah, yeah, I'm not negating that. I'm not negating any of this. I'm not negating men's struggles. I'm not negating that women have access to sex at probably a 10 times rate, I think literally based on that study, than men. I'm not negating any of that. What I'm saying is that this caricature of like women is just like being these like women who just have access to everything and they're just gluttonously eating in all of the attention and intimacy and validation is just like it seems not really true. I don't think any of our mental health markers show this. Yes, women in general seem to be better at like managing relationships, and yes, men are getting like fucked over in society. But I don't want to like feed into this idea like as like these women being these like selfish entitled pariahs, like feeding on the corpse of like men suffering. Like that's just not
Yeah,
what's happening.
I agree. That's not the case. That's not the case 99% of the time. I think that we'll have to do a part two to my experiment and do one with my grandma. So it seems like my mom is crushing Tinder even with face app older. So let's see how my 87-year-old Jewish grandma does. Let's see if my Jewish grandma crushes Tinder. I know I keep saying Jewish because I guess that part is irrelevant, but yeah, I bet you she will still get more matches than me.
For
I bet.
sure. I guarantee you she'll probably get similar numbers. But I think, again, that's more of a marker of like the strategy. I don't know how many guys would actually say, yeah, I'd want to like go take her out on a date and fuck her. Right?
Well, that's what we're gonna find out. That's gonna be part two. Is we're gonna message the guys and see.
Okay.
Yeah.
What
Oh,
you
yeah,
should
that's
see,
right.
part two should be how many men approach her specifically.
Well, my grandma lives in Israel. That's gonna be really hard for me to film.
Well, just
I
like
like that.
what? Just make her Tinder profile here in like Miami and see. Just make a fake Tinder profile and just do a bunch of.
Oh, how
swiping.
many guys open her?
Yeah. How many? So she'll probably match with a shitload of men. I agree.
Right. How many? Okay.
Even an
Okay.
87-year-old.
Right.
How many of them approach her and like go out of their way to like organize some sort of thing? I'd be super
You
curious.
mean
to see
you
how
mean
many
you mean open? But I see what you're saying. Yeah.
cold approaches or whatever the word would be. Yeah, like.
Well, cold approach is if like my grandma's walking on the street and someone comes up.
Okay, I just mean DM it first. Whatever the red pill language is for that. I'm sorry.
There we go. There we go.
I like the idea though that Alex, you are changing your studies so that their methods are stronger, such that the study design includes, you could say, taking note of how many times the person on Tinder actually does, as you said, says, hey, like, let's go on a date. Because as Erudite pointed out, and as you've talked about before, Alex, the men's habit of like just the boop, 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 swipe through 100 million without even looking. But the other thing is, one thing Alex, we've talked about this, but I'd love Erudite's opinion on it. Why is it that of these dating apps, I've heard it's a consistent stat that 80% of the users are men, and that only about, namely, yeah, you could say, put it this way, that for every woman on these dating apps, there are 5 men on that same dating app. Why? Is it that men just find it more socially acceptable to do this kind of dating? Are men more lonely than women? Do they have less of a social community and network? I think that's for sure a big driver of it.
For sure.
What do you think?
Sure.
Do you want me to go first or Kyla?
Let me remember what you said, Alex. What was it you said last time? I can't remember.
I don't know. It was probably a while ago. Okay, so I'll go quick. You want to do rock paper scissors shoot? We can do rock paper scissors shoot.
No, I'm kidding. We can if you want to.
Okay, so I think first of all, it depends on the dating app. Tinder is the most overrun with men. But if we go to like Bumble or Hinge, it drops down by like 10 percentage points. Like Bumble and Hinge is only like 71% sausage fest. But then if we go to other ones, it can drop down to like 50%. Like if we go to more dating oriented ones, like I think one of them was eHarmony or something like that. But one of the more dating oriented ones, it dropped down to like 50%. So there are websites and /apps where there are like a very fair ratio. It's just that like it's not ones that people typically get on. And typically what those have in common is they're less hookup oriented and they're more dating oriented. So Yeah, so I think that's one thing to keep in mind. Just has to do with the fact that Tinder is probably the most hookup oriented out of all these apps, right? And that's why it has the highest dude ratio. But when you go, as you keep going to less and less dating oriented, the ratio gets better and better and better and better. I'm sure if there was an app called like fucking like wait until marriage to have sex, that would be like 70% fucking women. You know what I
It's
mean?
called Christian Mingle. It's just
Yeah. I bet I'd have to look into that, but probably has more women than men. I don't know, or at the very least.
Germany's 50-50. It's 53% women and 47% men. That's
Yeah.
crazy. I didn't know that.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's as you go more dating oriented, there's less and less. So that's the first thing. I think also the second thing has to do with how women use dating apps. So I think a girl will get on Tinder and then she might like go on a few dates, she doesn't like it, or she actually likes it, meets a guy, and then she deletes the app. Versus the guy will just keep the app open, and that skews the data. Like the guy will just like have the app in the background just in case. You never know. Anything could happen. So right, so he's gonna just like not download, not delete the app. So I think that's also another factor. Versus for a girl, it's like, I mean, not every friend group, but with some friend groups, like, yo, like if your friends see Tinder on your phone, or the guy you're like, kind of getting to know sees Tinder on your phone, like, that's a negative, right? So you're getting deleted. So yeah, I think those are probably two of the bigger factors. I think third is that women just have so much options from just like their day-to-day life, like just like being DM'd on Instagram, being approached at the grocery store, being approached at a bar, that they don't really need Tinder or other dating apps nearly as much as men do.
Yeah, friends, brothers, like friends of friends, like a friend whose boyfriend has friends. Like there's just like there's a
Yeah,
better
brother.
community in general. So yeah, I think like loneliness, like you hit on community, essentially, that like men on average almost always have like less friendships. They seem to be way less community connected. They occupy like very, very male dominant spaces. Whereas like there's been, I think, a lot more push to like make space for women in like male dominated spaces, and less so the reverse. Like the STEM field, while still a sausage fest, I think has literally a higher percentage of women than like the help field does have of men, right? And so we're like not seeing men pushing into these like female only spaces as much as women are pushing into men. So like women are having just, if you're a woman in a male dominated space, like you literally have the pick of the town basically. Yeah, I think the fact that like Tinder has like a 70 to 30% rate for men and women, but what Christian Mingle has 58% women and 41% men. One issue is like somebody pointed out aptly, there's less people on Christian Mingle overall. Like there's way more Tinder users just in general. So even though it might be like 58% female, you still might have, 20,000 less people using the app itself. So like the selection skewed.
But that should be reflective. That should trickle down into the gender. I don't think that should play a role, right?
It probably does to some extent. Like mostly what I mean is like if a guy is like interested in a kind of a wide net of women, if they're on like Christian Mingle, that's going to very much dominantly select for like a specific type of woman. Like she's probably Christian if she's on there, which means she's going to be Christian in value. She's not probably going to be super interested in like very early on sex. She's probably dating to marry, these types of things. I suspect as well we'd see the age range of Christian Mingle a little bit older for women as well. That wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, a lot of dating apps aren't giving women what they're looking for. A lot of women I know have had really bad experiences on Tinder. They get like really spooked by like a bad Tinder date. And they're just like, they just can't trust Tinder to help them vet. So they look to alternative methods, and they also just have greater access to alternative methods. They have friends, they have peers, they have, there's always this idea of like, oh, I should set you up with like this young man and this sort of thing. So they've got like, I think more people just care about women more. I think just in general, people are interested in investing into women because women are nice and cute and sweet. Like a fat, sweaty guy at 20, nobody thinks is cute and sweet and wants to invest into. They're just kind of like,
There's some research.
I think I'm cute and sweet. Okay, so I appreciate
you're not fat and sweaty. Okay.
I appreciate if you all insult my cuteness and sweetness, but no, I mean I think the easiest factor is like when you look at like how hookup oriented is this platform, you see a direct like correlation between the male to female ratio. Tinder, the most hookup oriented, has the highest ratio. Bumble, Hinge, a little bit less hookup oriented, has a better ratio. And then we go to Christian Mingle, which is like really doesn't have a reputation of being hookup oriented, unless there's something I'm missing about the Christians, is like primarily women, right? And so you see this pattern. So I think that's by far the biggest factor.
That's super interesting. I was going to say that there is some research, like Erudite was mentioning, that if you have men and women have a 10-minute conversation, so we've done this in an experiment, and it's either with a woman or with a man, and all things equal. So they make sure beforehand that the male and female are equal in attractiveness and whatever else. And they find that not just women, because you might expect that people have a preference for their own sex in terms of talking with them or something like that, but also the men actually had a preference for talking to women. So in other words, they rated their conversation as like more enjoyable or fulfilling if it was with a woman compared to with a man. And the topics were the same. So like the substance of the conversations, like they were Confederate. So they were basically saying the same thing in either case. But it makes sense. Like women are more social. They have more social intelligence. They probably know how to do a better job of being good listeners, signs of listening, things like that. Men are on average more autistic and just not as socially suave. But anyway.
Yeah, I will say this. Like, I think that you can still do pretty good on Tinder, unless you're like really, really bad genetics and ugly. But if you're like the average guy or above average, I think you can still do really well. I think that I've done a lot of these where I create a profile as a girl and just see what guys are doing. And fact of the matter is, most guys' profiles suck. Their photos suck. Their Tinder bio is very negative, or it's like a resume. Their texting is horrible. So your competition is pretty bad. It's worse than most people think. So yeah, if you're just doing the things that I talk about constantly, you do have an edge. Combine that with like some basic looks maxing, like going to the gym, getting a fresh haircut, getting clothes that fit you well, maybe getting some tattoos if you're into that. Yeah, you can still do decent on dating apps. I would say this. Okay, the best strategy for dating strategy for men is achieve some level of fame or status, right? That's nothing is going to top that, right? Like that's just like if you can do that. But the problem is that's not acceptable. That's not possible for 99% of people, right? That's like kind of what I feel like freshman fitness is. It's just like, oh, bro, just become a multimillionaire. Okay, well, 99% of people are not going to become like fucking high status or multimillionaires, right? But that is like the cream of the crop. Second place is, I would say, something like niche maxing. So learn game, looks max as much as possible, and then find like a niche. So it could be like, for example, the BDSM niche, right? If you're into that, could be like photography niche, could be travel niche, like some kind of a niche that has a decent female to male ratio, where you can actually meet girls through there, in addition to diversifying and utilizing different tools like dating apps, cold approach, and whatnot. That's the second best, but yeah, that's kind of where I would say my advice would be. I don't know. Do you guys agree or disagree with that?
I don't know. The more I think about the red pill, I think here's the thing: if you just want to like have sex, I think that's good advice. The issue is most men are using those strategies to have sex, and they're pursuing venues of trying to have sex, but complaining about how they like want to meet like these nice girls and like girls that they can have a relationship with. And these are just different strategies. Like completely. They have to be. Like short-term and long-term dating strategies are different. We can even see this in women. Women almost never prefer short-term dating strategies. But yeah, they're just different things. And I'm just tired of giving men short-term dating strategies and them coping about it because they're like, but I just want a long-term girl. And I'm like, then stop chasing short-term dating strategies. Like if you just want to have sex, that's fine. These strategies will work. It's going to be a little bit harder though, because you're competing for basically a rare resource. There's not a lot of women that are super keen on just having sex. So you have to like fill a whole bunch of random prerequisite metrics for women who can set a pretty high bar because the demand is super high and the supply is pretty low, right? If you're wanting a relationship, you have a different strategy, but that also means you have to take the trade-off of expecting probably not to have sex right away. And so it's like, I don't really care what men do. I just wish that like we would be clear about which dating strategies are going to help men achieve which things.
Yeah, but I would argue the two things I mentioned will help you with short-term and long-term. So if we look at the first one, which is just become famous, bro, which is kind of a meme.
Yeah, for sure.
but like that's how Destiny met his wife. Like she slid in his DMs, and they're happily together, right? Like that is how a lot of people, like when you're putting yourself out there like that, right, into the world. There's, especially if you have like a female audience, like some of them are going to find you attractive, and then you can very carefully
being
screen
rich
out.
and famous is just meta. Like it's just like it just
Right, but that is or achieve some level of status. Like it doesn't have to be like be famous, but like if you are the owner of a club or like a yoga studio, and like in that establishment, you do have the status, right? So that would be like one okay, like the story of like
totally agree.
the guy who does my IVs. Like it's a pretty interesting story. He has like a smoking hot like fucking girlfriend, and he's like he's an Indian dude. He's taller than average, but he's like very much your Indian dude. And I asked him like, how do you meet? He was like, yeah, she came in for the IV. She was really interested. I started telling her about like, that this IV clinic, I own the clinic. I started telling her like some things that I do, was purely professional. And she found me on Instagram. She started, liking my photos. At that point, I could tell she was into me, right? So just kind of exposure, right? Through local status, right? This guy's not famous, but he just like in that IV place, he's the guy. But the second one also is like niche maxing. That will also is like compatible with meeting like a long-term partner. So yeah, I think both of those strategies can work for long-term and short-term.
Yep, absolutely. I just think like if you're going into a relationship with a woman with the goal of just kind of like having sex, that necessarily is going to communicate something to most women, because women's entire job is trying to vet your intentions with her, right? And so it's like, if that is your goal fundamentally, that's going to turn off any woman who isn't interested in men who are selecting women only for sex. Like that's just reality. So even if you have all these other markers, right, some women might be wooed in just by those markers alone. But again, I would say a lot of those women might not be the women that you want to be in a long-term relationship with, right? That might not be the best like grounds for a healthy relationship. But I think if like your intention in relationship is you have all these prerequisites that you mentioned, and you're also approaching it with a long-term strategy, you're probably going to be more successful in finding long-term partnership.
Yeah, I would say number 3 is maybe tied for number 2 is have a really good social circle that has women in it. That also is going to give you a leg up, and also learn good social skills. Yeah, I would say that's another good one.
That makes sense. Changing gears to keep things fresh.
You're just moderating a conversation now, James. You're supposed to answer these questions.
This is, in my experience, men. So there's errors of omission and there are errors of commission. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times men think like, what are the things that I need to do? And don't get me wrong, there are good things you can do. Like I agree with everything that you guys have said. Then you could say that's actually an error originally. That's an error of omission. Like there's something that's missing. It's like, oh, you got to add this. You've been missing this. You've omitted this for so long. And then there's errors of commission. There's accidentally, they're not doing it on purpose, destroying their own, and like they're screwing it up because they're doing things like Alex, we talked about. Like if I bring up, it's so juicy, it's hard not to bring up like juicy topics because I'm just so stimulated by them. On a date, here's an example. This is a concrete example. I think they're so fun to talk about that I want to talk about like interesting red pill stuff or whatever, that without it being like, I know what's offensive. So I try to keep it like not too offensive, but it's like nonetheless, even then, be careful.
But you can talk about all that stuff after you have sex.
But you could say it's a sin of commission. So in other words, like men are oftentimes doing sins of commission. They're screwing things up because they're just doing things wrong, not just lacking the good stuff like you talked about, like getting status or whatever it is. And I think men do these a lot. It's not just me that thinks that's the case. Think of it. There are so many things that men do. Here's another one. A lot of men show too much interest too early, and she's spooked. She's like, what? Why is he going so far so fast? That's another one. All sorts of them like that. So I would just focus on, it's kind of like I've thought about for modern day debate. I want to do the things, what are my sins of omission? What are the things that I'm missing out on that I need to add? Who are the new speakers that I should try to see if we can have on because people would enjoy hearing them? But then I also think about what are the past debate channels that I've seen that no longer, that either we've passed in growth or that they just died, they're dead, they're no longer because they screwed it up. They did these sins of commission. And so, for example, some people can make it work, and I hope they can. But if you're going to do a podcast, folks, be really careful about doing it with a partner, because it's so common. Charlie and Ben, you guys know of Charlie from Charisma on Demand? They
Yeah.
just had
Yeah.
their own podcast. They've been buddies forever, and then they split ways. I watched a little bit of the video where Charlie's explaining it. I don't exactly know what's going on. I'm not saying that his podcast is going to do terrible now. In fact,
Call Her Daddy's another example. Yeah, there's a bunch of examples like
Simple
that.
pickup.
Non Sequitur Show was the one that I modeled Modern Day Debate on. They imploded after they had some conflict between the two owners. There was another one, Politically Provoked, had some challenges like that, where
Right now the Daily Wire with is going through that. Yeah,
it's like buying a house. Like Dave Ramsey would say, like, don't buy a house with anybody other than your spouse. So I don't think that's true about podcasts. I think friends can pull off the podcast thing, but it's really hard. I think it's a sin of commission. I would avoid it. Just don't even worry about it. So like Alex, you've gone solo. If you had a partner, you have to worry at some point you're going to disagree. I think that there's like a difference between like.
Well, just to clarify, I have a business partner, but I don't have a podcast partner.
Fair enough. An on-screen partner, maybe that's it. One of the reasons is because oftentimes, the audience falls in love with both of the people that they're listening to. So if they have this like conflict and disagreement, it's like, well, who's going to have the channel now if they have that conflict? But anyway, that's off the topic of dating. But nonetheless, there are sins of omission and sins of commission. Keep an eye on the sins of commission as well if you're a guy. I'm trying to think of other ones, but those are at least a couple of examples.
I'm just picturing James like having pillow talk with a girl and being like, "Hey, baby, what do you think about partial bank reserving and the fiscal and like quantitative easing or some like nerdy shit?"
It's hard because I hate small talk too.
It's like there's something really.
He's like, "Have you heard about the SVP, Silicon Valley Bank, and what's going on there? What do you think about it?
Right.
How do you feel about BRICS? Are you worried about the gold-backed dollar that they're building?"
It's way more
there's something really, really juicy I want to talk to you about, but this guy Alex from Playing with Fire said I should talk about juicy things, but I really am so fucking juicy for this juicy conversation. Do you want to just find out what's juicy? She's like, yeah, you want me to suck your dick? No. Like, I want to talk about juicy topics.
Exactly. Juicy topics. One juicy topic to change gears.
This motherfucker. Right.
This is probably old news. You probably already heard this idea, but my friend Andrew told me this, and I said, oh my gosh, that seems so true. And Alex, I've already run this by you, so I'm sorry it's a little bit recycled, but nonetheless, what are your thoughts on it, Alex, as well, if you have any new thoughts? Namely, this idea of like, hey, there's this double standard, erudite, and don't get me wrong, I think there's such a thing as sexism. I think it's real. I don't think it's as big as people think when it comes to the alleged double standard of sexual, you could say, exploration or being with multiple partners. Namely, that they say, hey, I mean, maybe you already know. This is why I'll just ask you, like, what's the alternative explanation other than that? Well, it's just sexism. Men just want to put women down for being sexually active. And, they give a high five to the man, though. One explanation is just, well, it's just sexism. But another explanation is, do you know where I'm going here?
Sorry, what's the double standard that you're getting towards? Is
the
it
alleged
like
double standard that if men are on sexual conquest to have, they're partnering up with many different partners, they're given a high five, and it's like, wow, hey, way to go, buddy. But if a woman does it, they slut shame, and they say, oh, she's nasty. No way to go. No high fives for you. Some would say that double standard is explained by sexism. But another explanation is, erudite, you know where I'm going?
I do.
Okay, good. It's becoming mainstream now. What is it?
Pair bonding?
Just to be sure we're on the same page.
Are you talking about like pair bonding?
I don't think so.
Say more, because I don't know what you mean by that.
Pair bonding or like other evopsych theories about like dual mate hypothesis or anything like that?
I don't know if we're actually thinking about the same thing. Can you say more?
Why don't you tell me? Because I don't want to go on a long diatribe about these two theories.
Sure. And it might be more than one alternative explanation to sexism. And like I said, maybe there's a small piece of the explanation is sexism, but I think maybe a bigger one, in fact, for sure a bigger one, I think, at least a big one, is that, well, wait a minute, just like the study we went over, women are more picky. So if you think about it, especially when it comes to sex, like I said, by the way, I didn't finish the last stat. So from that study, when it comes to Will you go have sex with me right now? Let's go find a spot, like sneak away in a corner. It's 75% of men say yes. And what percent of women say yes? Do you have any guesses? In this study, it was 0. So 75 to 0. Now, the idea here is for whatever reason, one being like physical safety. Women are like, I'm not going to go have sex with this complete stranger or whatever. Like, but men aren't worried about like, oh, she might beat me up. So one explanation is when it comes to this alleged double standard, it's not sexism. It's that when it comes to the man, if a man is able to have sex with all these different women, I'm not condoning this as like a moral, I don't want to say it's like a virtuous thing, but if a man is, you have to admit there's skill involved. If he's able to have sex with all these women, you saw in the study that we talked about, 0% of women say yes usually. He's got to be doing something in an impressive way. Like he's got to have some sort of skill. It's hard to get women. They're more picky when it comes to that. But is it hard to get a bunch of men to have sex with you if you're a half decent looking woman? Well, no, it's not that hard. Like it's pretty easy. Right. So in other words, the double standard, the reason that the men get the like, hey, high five, like way to go, like wow, is because he actually did something that's difficult. The woman,
right? It takes a lot of skill to to sleep with a lot of women as a man. It takes no skill to sleep with a lot of men as a woman. Yeah,
right. Sure. And not only that. The other thing is you're like, well, yeah, but I mean, she doesn't just not get praise or, not get the high fives. She gets shamed though. And I say it's true. Like maybe there is something, I don't know if it's necessarily sexism, although I would say at the same time, if you asked your friends, and like I said, I'm not saying I don't have any joy in judging anybody, but I would say like, if you asked your friends like, oh yeah, Larry, like in your guy group, if there's a like Larry the Tomcat, he's trying to sleep with a bunch of women, and let's say he's even good at it. Like, are your friends gonna like say like if you said like who's the most high integrity person in our group? Do you really think they're gonna say Larry? I think that there's a part of them like that like they don't think it quite jives. They wouldn't say like, oh yeah, it's virtuous. Like it is a little bit, even for men, like kind of people think like it looks a little sleazy. Like on some moral dimension, they're a little bit like less impressed by him. I'm not saying that's right of them to have that view, but I'm just saying I think it's a reality of the world. Like that's just the way it is. So in other words, like I don't think they shame as harshly with men, but I think that they still do kind of like look a little bit down on them. Like morally, they don't see him as highly as they did, just like they don't see women as highly as they did. So there's a little bit of like shaming, though it's not as explicit. Although I've got to tell you too, it doesn't make a lot of sense, Freudian slip. It doesn't make a lot of sense for men if they're all horned up, which like they generally, I mean, a lot of them are. It doesn't make a lot of sense. It's like, oh yeah, like it's sexism. Men like to slut shame women. It's like, well, why? If men want sex with women, like, wow, that's strange. Like they could employ sexism in so many different forms. Why are they choosing this particular type in which they suppress the resource that they most want from women by shaming them and saying like, oh, like you're slutty, when that's the thing that they want from women, right. According to like so it's like,
I think it used to be a good heuristic, right? Like back when it was in general kind of socially taboo to have lots of sex across the board, a woman with a really high body count is probably pretty antisocial. She's like basically willing to violate all social norms. And a woman who is really willing to violate all social norms and probably be somewhat impulsive as well, because she's probably making some risky decision making with some of her sex, that's a pretty good flag for not a good partner, right? Somebody who's antisocial, willing to violate social taboos, and is a high risk taker implies like probably impulsive, or at least like not a very like thoughtful actor, right? So it like mapped onto a bunch of characteristics that we valued in partners in general, which was people who are self-responsible, who prioritize long-term rewards over short-term rewards, and who aren't antisocial, who are willing to kind of play tit for tat with societal norms. The issue is that body count, I think, maps less and less well onto this. I think in general, because we've like kind of freed sex, there's probably tons of girls with like a body count of like 5, 6 that would make probably pretty good partners for most men. They would probably actually make a really standard partner. And so there's a heuristic that, again, I think when you get to the egregious amounts, I think is quite a good metric, right? The issue that I have is I understand the double standard, and I just don't like whining about double standards. They exist all over the place. They suck. It's unfortunate. It's frustrating, right? There's a double standard for women in that we're fucking weak. We don't have testosterone. That
But
sucks.
a lot of double standards make sense.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of double standards do make sense. And I'm saying, I think in many ways, this double standard makes sense to some extent. The issue is that it's increasingly a worse heuristic as time goes on, as we have things like condoms, as we have things like STI medication, birth control, the like risks inherent, the social taboo that's being violated, the risky behavior that's occurring for women specifically is lessened. It's less risky behavior. It's less dangerous behavior. It's less impulsive behavior, right? And so it's still an okay-ish heuristic. The problem is that there are now better heuristics, right? I think Alex gave a really good one. Like a woman being not flaky is actually probably a better heuristic of a good partner than just her body count alone. Because a woman who's willing to like blow you off and be very like bad at communicating and no showing and stuff like this, I think in many ways that probably maps onto a number of actually these specific characteristics like impulsivity, short-term rewards, prioritization, social taboos like antisociality better than body count does for the most part. Although again, because of social taboos, any woman who's violating the body count of like plus 10, again, that might be like more of like a yellow flag. Yeah, that's how I would respond.
Yeah, well, I think that you're trying to logically address something that's not logical, right? So red pillars LARP around and say like, "Oh, this just has to do with the divorce risk," even if they're not looking for marriage, right? It's a logical decision. It's not. Most of the time, it's not a logical decision. It's not a primarily logical decision. It's a combination of ego and insecurity. I've heard enough like red pill like rants to like know that's what it comes down to. Like, let's take Donovan Sharp. Like literally, he went on a rant, and I'm not like paraphrasing, and literally that's what he said. He's like, "Well, if she's been with a bunch of guys, how do I know that my dick is the biggest one? She's probably been with dicks way bigger than me. How am I supposed to live with that? How am I supposed to sleep at night if I know she's been in with dicks bigger than me?" That's an insecurity right there, right? Like, so yes, I do think like sure, like there's logical issues with dating a girl who has a super high body count because she's gonna be probably way more volatile, whatever. But the dudes who are like obsessed with virgins, like, oh my god, this girl has a body count of 2. I could never date her. It's like at that point, it just becomes like an ego thing. It's not a logical thing most of the time. So yeah, that's kind of like that's a position that I don't think is going to be popular in my community, but it kind of is what it is. Yeah, I feel like this obsession with like body count, virginity, like okay, that's a metric, but there's like other metrics that are very important to look at. That I would say is more important than that. Yeah, just like if you just listen enough to like long form content of a lot of these red pillars, you almost always see like elements of insecurities come out. Like this guy could have a bigger dick than me. Oh my god, I can't be with a girl who's seen a bigger dick. Like okay, dude, well you need to get over your fucking small dick insecurity. Or the dudes are like, what she could go back to her boyfriend who's like so much cooler than me. Okay, well maybe you should stop being a loser and like actually stop worrying about like the fact that she's been with like dudes who are cooler than you. I don't know, man. Like I just feel like a lot of this shit just comes down to like an insecurity, and it's not a logical thing; it's an emotional thing. But that's not to completely discount the idea that like there's logical benefits to dating a girl with a lower body count, but it also comes down to like extremes and like moderation. Like there's a massive difference between like if you're going from a girl, I would venture to say like if you're going from a girl with body count of 2 to body count of 5, I don't think there's any like big practical logical difference in like how good of a partner she's going to be. But if you're going from 5 to 50, that might be a different story, right? That's a girl who's highly novelty seeking and whatnot. So yeah, there's levels to it, and there's moderation. If a guy's like, hey, I don't want to be with a girl who has too high of a body count, hey, I understand that. I probably would be in the same position. But it's like, I need a virgin, and it's like, okay, well, it's not a logical thing. That's a fucking emotional thing.
Have you heard of, going back to that question I asked earlier, just to be sure I know what's going on out there in the world, Erudite, have you heard that, namely that potential explanation of the double standard before?
The one I just gave you or the one you just gave me?
The one I gave.
Yeah, it's kind of like I heard it in like church all the time. Like what is it? A key. It's like the lock and key. Like a lock that opens to all keys is useless.
Wow.
And like women are the lock and men are the key, obviously. Also works for penetration.
Wait, hold on. Just to be sure I understand. Namely that They taught you in church that the reason that the double standard exists among men and women who are going on their sexual conquests is because for men to bed a bunch of women, it takes skill.
Well,
that's what I was talking about.
No, what they would say, they wouldn't really talk in church, at least. Both should be virgins. Churches are at least consistent, which I can appreciate, right? It's impulsivity and like bad behavior on both genders to be fucking around, right? A guy with 100 body count is very naughty in church. Not okay. What they would say though is like, if you're a woman who's willing to open up herself, to multiple keys, specifically what they say is, the key would wear down, all the different keys would wear down the lock over time. The lock would get looser and looser until at this point, any key can open the lock.
Yeah, that's not really like
And a lock that opens to any key, that's not a valuable lock. Why would you ever want to give your husband a useless lock? Is like kind of what I would learn.
Oh, that wasn't what I was trying to ask about though. Because I think that the focus went on the slut shaming and like whether or not men are shamed a little bit too. I'm talking about like the alleged double standard, like why aren't women given this praise and like the high fives? It's like, well, because men are doing something hard. Like that idea.
Because it doesn't really take any skill to get laid as a woman.
It's still kind of the lock and key. Like if you're a lock that's able to open, if you're a key that's able to open like a really, really difficult lock, that's like special, right? That key is really valuable in that moment. It's kind of like still the same thing. But yeah, I understand what you're saying.
And you've heard it before though. Like that's an idea
I've heard
that's
this
out
double
there.
standard. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's like probably since like Rollo Tomasi, if not earlier.
Oh,
no, I shouldn't give Rollo Tomasi credit. It's probably since long before Rollo Tomasi.
Forgive
But
me
yeah,
if
I think the double standard is true. And it's kind of true. It is harder for men to get sex. It is more impressive for a guy to attain sex than for a woman. Obviously. I think that this is self-evident, right? Not all double standards are fair. Double standards are annoying. It is what it is. Oh, I would just say a good person probably should like work really hard on not just seeing a person as a body count, because like society is a lot more complex than that. There's a lot less like that your heuristic maps onto for specifically women, which is specifically like the negative elements about a woman, because all of the like risks and negative elements are mostly largely alleviated for women. Like pair bonding's not really real and stuff like that.
You've probably answered it, so forgive me if you have, but I feel like you're answering every question except the one I'm asking. Namely, like in other words, I'm just trying to say, so it is out there, like it is like, and forgive me, I know that sounds a little bit snarky, and I'm not trying to be. I'm like, so it is like the convention, like a lot of people talk about this now, where not the shaming part. So like not talking about that. I'm explicitly saying like, that's not what I'm asking about. Is that the part of the idea of like, oh, well, at least in part, the explanation for the alleged double standard is that men, it's like, it's hard for women to bet a bunch of girls, but it's not for women. Like that's kind of common. That's kind of conventional wisdom now. Is that true?
Yeah, I would say I've heard that a fair bit. I would actually agree with that as well.
Okay. I was just because I wasn't sure if like people, because that's kind of a red pilled thing that I just was like, I don't know if a lot of people talk about that or think about it. Like, okay, but I got what you're saying now.
Yeah.
Yo, do you guys mind if I open up the panel, bring on a few people, have a discussion?
Sure.
All right, cool.
Good faith, James. Get welcome. Welcome to PWF Open Panels.
Welcome to PWF. Yeah, it's a little bit of a shit show sometimes. But I feel like James has this calming energy, professor energy that's going to like take all the bad faith out of everyone. All right, what's up, Angry?
Hello?
Hi, Angry.
You're
very soft.
You're very soft. Not like your penis, your volume.
Maybe your penis.
Whoa. Let me see if I can edit his settings on my end. Yeah, that's a lot better.
That's better? Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While you talk, I'm just going to eat real quick, but keep going.
Sure thing. Sorry, I don't think we've met. James, is it?
Yes, glad to meet you.
Yes, nice to meet you. I've actually been a fan of your channel for a long time, since I was in high school. So,
thanks. That means a lot.
Yeah, I listened to the like atheist debates back in the day. I had like a phase when I was 14 or so. So anyway, just a few observations from the convo. So you were talking about like the incompatibility of certain tastes and whatnot, and you're saying like, oh, like women are vegans and men are carnivores and vice versa.
That was
that was you. Yeah, correct.
Yeah.
So that just an observation. I'm not sure if you know who Thinking Ape is. He's been in the Manosphere for like probably more than a decade at this point. But he pointed out that women, if they want relationships, they're still extremely attainable to them, and the distinction is that there are going to be some men who obviously can't access what they want, whether it's in the form of a relationship or if it's something casual that leads to a relationship. Some men are going to have to invest to acquire intimacy. Sorry, some men are going to have to invest to acquire intimacy. Some men can acquire it without investing much. And then there's that third tier of men who can't acquire it at all. But he said, if women really, want something, whether it's potatoes and gruel or, kind of a crude analogy, or whether it's a filet mignon, they're still going to eat before they go to bed. So, just wanted to hear your thoughts.
Mine or James?
The panel can weigh in.
Okay.
Erudite first, please.
So I just want to make it clear because I'm concerned that it sounded to everyone like I was being like, it's equal, it's the same problem, it's all the same shit. No, I mean, a large portion of my channel is talking about the fact that I think right now men are uniquely, specifically young men, are facing obstacles in dating like they've never faced before. I think that there are less like support networks for young men to be successful in basically any metric in life. Like basically in every way, I think like young men are kind of getting like fucked over by society. I think that there's a lot of problems. And so I'm not trying to say that men and women have equal obstacles in relationships. What I'm trying to say is that we shouldn't judge women with a male gaze of what they want out of relationships, because when women are talking about relationships, they're talking about different goals a lot of the time. And so when like men are being like, yeah, but like women can just have sex, the reason why it falls like so on deaf ears is because that's not really what women are interested in. Even though I would agree, I would say for the most part, women are also probably more likely to just find relationships. They have better friendships across the board.
Absolutely,
yeah. So like, I would agree that like, and when it comes to like overall relational function, women are still outperforming and doing better than men. It seems like there's a lot more supports and
blah, 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 blah. I'm glad we agree on that then. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's just basically you have to recognize that women are what's the best way to say this? They're accommodated for by modernity, Like yes. I was even talking to a friend about this today. He's like, what about the pressure to wear makeup? And I'm like, yeah, but if there's no pressure to acquire a mate for, basic sustenance, there's no pressure to wear makeup, right? Or what about birth control is, obviously effective and cheap and accessible. So there's just so many factors that are working in their favor, including robust social safety nets, in the form of female friends or their education. It's just, we talk about female depression, like, like the psychologist Jonathan Haidt talks about teenage girls being depressed. And, I go to fucking eat lunch and it's like, cry me a river. Like I see all these girls around me just, having an amazing time, laughing. And it's ridiculous to me that people think women are more depressed than men, especially at young ages. It's just ridiculous.
Do you think men have it harder than women?
Me?
Yeah.
Alex, I need to teach you how to use a spoon. Oh my God, I'm going to lose my brain.
Sorry about that kind of rant. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, Alex.
Yeah, I would disagree with that. I think it's equally difficult, but there's different challenges.
No, I think that's just absurd. But I mean, you can believe that.
I think women have more social safety networks. So here's what I would say. I think there's, in general, I do think women seem to still have higher levels of anxiety and depression because women, as far as social media, interact with social media in a very, very different way. I don't know if that's socialized or downstream of genetics. Hard to say, to be honest. But we just see it. We just see like women's anxiety and depression rates like going through the roof. Probably in part because the way like men express. I mean, James can probably speak better to this than I can, but sometimes the way men and women express like things like mood disorders can express a little bit differently. But I also think a lot of the time that like men will kind of bury their distress until it like comes out sideways in like addiction or like high risk behaviors and stuff like that. So like a man will be like, I'm fine. Now I'm addicted to like Coke. And you're just like, what? Like, okay, how did we get here?
So you're saying it's like internalizing versus externalizing most of the time?
Well, it's definitely internalizing and externalizing, but I think a lot of the times because we like socialize girls, for example, to be more open about their emotionality, that's probably in part leading to some of the skewing that we're seeing. But also the way that I think like men process emotions, which is probably a bit of nature and nurture, looks really different from women. So I'd be curious to see studies that maybe accounted for the differences in how these things can be expressed and if we would actually see as much of a difference in like distress markers, because what we're really talking about is distress. Who's more distressed, who's struggling more.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Nice. James, or any thoughts?
Yeah, it is an interesting fact that women's depression and anxiety is increasing. So it's always been, I don't know if I'd say always, but it is increasing at rates much higher than men. There is also some research on I think it's called the happiness paradox, on women being less happy the last several decades. And that's been going on for a long time, that trend where women on average used to be happier than men. And then it became the case that women especially I think through the 60s and onward, became less happy. Now, some people they say the original paper for that is outdated. I have a new paper and I can show you, James. And I say, that paper I've seen within a review of many papers that actually shows that are recent, that shows that like, no, women do tend to be and I don't take any joy in this at all. Like, it's a sad thing, obviously. So I'm not trying to be discouraging to women, but on average. And so some women are more happy than usual. It's just an average. So long story short, I'm kind of like, wow, that's weird. How does that work? Especially because one of the bigger predictors of like psychological health is like social networks. I think Erudite made a great point that women tend to have stronger social networks. And like, for example, like church attendance, there's much higher women participation in churches or Bible studies, whatever it might be. There's still some men, but I'm trying to figure out why it is. And there is some research on that in terms of why some of the researchers think it might be. I tend to think both sexes are probably not helped by this constant externalization of problems. There's this constant, and there's research that shows this, that people, especially the last several decades, but maybe going back 50, 60 years, they are so much more focused on external factors as explaining their life outcomes. And it's bad for people because it's called an internal locus of control versus external locus of control. Long story short, I think that regardless of who has it harder, men or women, they're probably better off thinking that it's on them to improve. And I know that usually leftists don't like this because it sounds like a pulling it up by your bootstraps type of philosophy. It sounds like a more conservative philosophy. And I'll admit that it is probably true that it is a more conservative philosophy, but they're not going to be helped by thinking that it's societal stuff. I think that in truth, it could be that societal things are deteriorating. And I think they actually are. But at the same time, it's probably not going to help them to think that. It's actually, the research would suggest it's better that they think, hey, I've got to figure this out and get my own behaviors in order to pull myself out of this. So I hate, because I'm dodging your question, Angry. So to give an answer to your question, the original question of like, who has it harder, men versus women, there's just like a universe of all these different variables that it's like really hard for me to say. I guess with Alex, it's like, it's probably pretty close. It's just like different things. Though I would agree though, like Angry, I think you're seeing like, there are some things where it's like, yeah, like it looks very obviously that men have
like my perspective is that, you know, women are just doing better on every single measurable proxy of well-being. You know what I mean? And then I hear that they're more depressed. So I don't know. I thank you for clearing it up, I guess, but it's an interesting conversation for sure.
Dude, the chat is going crazy after watching me eat.
Well,
fuck 2 days. I want to watch Alex.
I cannot talk about anything else. I'm like almost crying. I was trying not to laugh so hard.
Yeah, I have like really bad fucking table manners.
Yeah, and James, I think having, you know, an internal locus of control is definitely helpful, but, you know, I'm not sure if there's a genetic, you know, component to that, or, you know, if you could elaborate on that.
Yeah, I'm glad yeah, that's a great question. it's certainly going to be influenced by genetics. I think more things are influenced by genetics than most people like to admit, including me, because I don't want to think I'm some sort of like biological robot. That's not encouraging for me to think that I have freedom. But there is like good research that, if anything, is really effective in psychology, and this is something that psychologists would agree with, like cognitive behavioral therapy, namely challenging your own thinking with new thoughts. So like if you're thinking like, oh man, it's not going to make much difference what I do in terms of saving my money, because the banks, we've got more banks are failing now, and whatever it is that you're thinking about, and the government's going to screw the pooch on whatever it is like trying to catch yourself in those types of thinking and say like, no, hold on, it does make a difference. I should listen to or like look up on like how much can my $1 be worth if I invest it for 30 years? Like, whoa, $23, or there's a lot of interesting stats out there. Like, but the idea is just trying to read materials and then challenge your own thinking using those materials. And by read materials, I mean read materials that are more suggestive or indicate that life is more about your own behaviors having an impact on your own outcomes. Read those more and then try to challenge your own thinking more with those ideas. Basically, do cognitive behavioral therapy on yourself. Cognitive behavioral therapy is just a fancy way of saying, and there's other components to it, so I'm oversimplifying it. But a big important part of it is you're trying to basically like do this kind of thought conditioning. You're trying to like change your cognitions, your thoughts, replace them with more positive ones. And so I would say try to replace those external ones with more internal. And I could recommend books on internal. A lot of the people think it's corny, like Tony Robbins and these self-help gurus. That's what they're doing, is they're doing cognitive behavioral therapy toward an internal locus of control. So call it corny if you want, but I think it works.
Yeah, thank you for the answer, for sure.
My
know
pleasure.
what? Maybe I'm gonna stop giving like dating and texting advice. I'm just gonna do like videos of me eating food. I have not seen this level of engagement, no matter what I do. So it seems like this is what really gets you guys off. Guys, you think this is bad? I can go way worse. Okay, I can fucking eat 1,000 times worse. So don't worry, I got you. Every stream I'm gonna take it up a notch. Every stream my eating is just gonna get worse and worse and worse. Like 2 weeks from now, there's gonna be like fucking pieces of broccoli flying everywhere. Rhaegar's gonna be like hit in the face with like chicken and shit.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was distracted from you guys.
But to give credit to Alex, his channel is a huge internal locus of control type thing. Alex, I would concede, grants that things have become harder for men in dating because of different factors. But nonetheless, like I've picked up on Alex having an internal locus of control, because Alex will say, like, what are you going to do to better yourself? Like, here are the things, like, let's get to work. Like, it's better than just sitting around and not trying. And so that's one thing I was just like, if you like Alex's channel, you probably are kind of inclined, you at least have a sympathy toward an internal locus of control, because the philosophy is undergirding all of what Alex says.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of reject the idea of libertarian free will. And, I've actually been in the manosphere for quite a while, but I wouldn't consider myself, like a libertarian or conservative. So I think a lot of the systemic factors are very important. But, I still like Alex's channel because it's an open platform and he's open to discussing new ideas. So
put a 1 in the chat if you want to see more videos of me eating. Put a 2 if you think you're going to need therapy after watching that. All right, let's I guess bring on the next person. We got a combination of 1s and 2s. All right, cool. Thanks, Angry. Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah,
nice to meet you, Angry.
Yeah, you too.
Take care.
Well, let's bring on 2 people. Let's bring on Uncomfortable Truth and Radical Coder.
What's going on?
Hey, everyone.
Hello.
What's up, buddy?
Alex, your eating reminds. Have you ever seen the Lord of the Rings?
Yeah.
The trilogy? Yeah, there's a scene where Denethor, the king, is like eating a bloody chicken and tomatoes, and he has like shit just drooling out of his face. Yeah, that's what it reminded me of.
That's perfect, because that's where exactly what I was going for.
Oh, really
Good for you,
nice.
King.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a medieval type of king character with magical powers, and I want to manifest that by eating the correct way.
I see you the same way.
Oh, your chat and my chat was so funny. I like every time I would get my like laughter under. I commend James' stoicism because every time I would get like my laughter under control, some fucker would say something in like your chat or mine, and I would just like die again. Oh my god, that was so funny.
This
Sorry,
is
guys.
making me laugh. Alex is discovering a new power move he can do. The aggressive water ball swings were just the tip of the iceberg.
I love those swigs. It's very intimidating.
I just
Yeah,
wanted
imagine that. Like I'm debating President Sunday, and he's just being a fucking dickhead. I'm like, all right, hold up a second, my man. Give me a second. I just start fucking eating like piece of chicken. It's going everywhere. I'll be like, all right. So what were you saying? Why do you feel like I'm miserable?
Why don't you pre-cut? Why didn't you pre-cut your broccoli?
Yeah, I ate a good amount of it. I'm
Well, why didn't you pre-cut it so you didn't have to like?
Oh, that's what my little chef does. That
Okay.
I don't do my own meal prep.
Damn, your own chef.
Well, my assistant / chef / roommate / friend / million other things. Yeah.
Damn, nice. Okay,
What?
I'm good. I'm under control.
All
I
right,
will
now-
ignore chat. I can't read anything more that they say. Next like 10 minutes.
Yeah, we're gonna change this to playing with food instead of playing with fire. I think that there's a
Brought some
massive
peanut butter.
audience for watching me eat. Well, let's kick it off to Ron, Radical Coder, and Uncomfortable Truth. See what they have to say.
Honestly, I didn't have anything specific. I just wanted to vibe. I was like, oh yeah, hey, James is here, Kyle is here, Alex. So Uncomfortable Truth, do you have a question or something you want to start us off? I'm sure I'll find something to chime in about.
Oh no, I'm just hanging out too. I mean, I'll think of a question though.
All right.
That's based. Let me ask you a question, Ryan. And
Yes,
glad
sir.
to meet you as well. Like, it's hard for me to see in the screen. Is it Uncomfortable Truth?
Yeah.
I like that. That's a nice name. And so glad to meet you. And Ryan, this is a great opportunity. I was going to ask you to email it to me, but I'll just do it. We can let it be transparent and in the public.
Mhm.
Is first, if you're watching at Erudites or Playing with Fighters, and you haven't subscribed yet, I encourage you to subscribe right now if you've forgotten, as well as if you've already subscribed, hey, you could always hit like. Totally encourage you to do that. But I want to say,
No, we're gonna be dropping a video tomorrow of me eating spaghetti, and you don't want to miss that.
Hell yeah. I got my
That's true.
notifications on.
but Ryan, well, why don't we say this one? Because I don't want it to be about, I don't want to draw the attention on myself about,
It's
I
okay.
want to keep it on like the more enjoyable stuff for Erudites and Playing with Fire's channel. But I know that we'll talk about it. I'll give you a friendly email soon, Ryan.
Okay,
Let's
I
talk
love you,
about it.
James. Just to be clear, I think very highly of you, and
That's really kind of you. Thank
yeah.
you, Ryan. I appreciate it. I
appreciate it
love
a
you
lot.
too. And I never took it personally. So you probably know what I was going to bring up. But anyway,
Yeah, I think
don't
so.
worry, we're cool. And I like that you said that. So long story short, let's talk about another red pill topic, something juicy, something interesting and offensive. Is it the case? You said it before, Erudite, and you put it really well. You said it so eloquently, Erudite, is that I have perceived this pattern before. And you guys, I mean, this is so politically, and it's going to sound like I'm picking on women. Maybe it's, I don't know, maybe it's. So when it comes to women who sleep around, I've noticed that like women, if they seem to be making an offer, if they seem to be like more suggestive, like if they seem to be like interested in like early casual encounters, like with me, like where I'm like, oh, okay, based on like our conversation we had or whatever.
Mhm.
I kind of at some point down the road of my pattern of interactions with those women, like you said it, but I was like, oh, independently, we've converged on this idea that those women have, on average, I've kind of thought like they'd leave me out to dry later.
Mhm.
Now, I'm not saying always. Like Alex said, there are better heuristics, there are better like little ways that you can kind of know like if they might be not per se antisocial, but leaning that way. Namely, they like, let's say they have plans with you and they cancel last minute, and it seems like it's kind of like like you're sick, and you just found out right now, like 20 minutes before the date or something, like something where you're like, something seems fishy, or maybe whatever other way they like leave you out to dry, where something just doesn't seem, it's like, that seems a little implausible.
Yeah, like what I think the best litmus test, let me just interject real quick, is you invite a girl out to dinner with someone like me, and then you make her watch me eat for half an hour. And then if she comes back, you know that chick is committed. All right. You know the girl is serious, okay? You know she ain't fucking around.
That could be. It may work.
See, you guys think I'm just a messy eater, but in reality, I'm running some 40 chess on Natty. You know, I want to see how committed she is.
He's vetting.
But I've tended to think that there is a pattern there, and you put it well, Erudite, namely that it might be that it's like, well, yeah, both sleeping around as well as whatever it might be, leaving somebody out to dry in some way. They might be more likely, like they both fall under the umbrella of, what's the word I'm looking for? Going against the social milieu, against the social norms.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's always the case, but I do think that there's a correlation there, and it just makes sense that that's real. And I've never said it to anybody because I just thought, I was like, this is probably just a pattern that like I think I'm perceiving, but it was so subtle that I wasn't really like super sure. But it makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I agree. I'm very based and smart.
Is this a pattern that you, Alex, have you ever noticed? Like you said, I know you're like, hey, there are better heuristics than this. Or anybody else. I only ask Alex because he's the host. But anybody else, if they want to say it, or even Erudite. I know that you're not, like, you probably don't have a lot of sexual offers from women, but like, of the women let's say, that are like sexually like conquesting a lot, on average, all things equal, do you think there's a small correlation where like they're also the type of people that like leave you out to dry when it counts?
I think here's the issue. It really depends on the space you're in. I think when somebody is really young, like a younger woman who's doing this behavior, it's often because she's doing like bad short-term. She's often engaging in bad short-term strategy, and she doesn't really like it. A lot of the women that are going to be in my space at this point, I'm like 29. I'm probably friends with like more women who are kind of the streamer. Of the women that I know that are sleeping around a lot, they're typically like in open relationships. So they've kind of figured out where they're like, they just really like sex. They really enjoy sex, and they enjoy novel sex with new partners. But their commitment levels with their relationships haven't been like too necessarily like affected. But we're also talking about like an open relationship, and there's like something implied within open relationships, which is that like there's an element where like you can exchange partners, or like eventually, like you don't just do that willy-nilly. Like it's not like if you're in an open relationship, they're just going to leave you tomorrow. But I haven't really seen that in like my friends that I have now that I know are like much more like what we call like sociosexual, where they're having lots of sex with lots of novel partners. But when I was in like college, like 21, I definitely saw that more, but that's often because like the same girls who are pursuing like a lot of kind of risky sex, especially, and high amounts of sex, were the same type of girls that were just like, kind of just like, to be honest, like had a lot of stuff they needed to work on. Like there was like some therapy needs and stuff like that. Whereas like by the time they're like 29 and still engaging these behaviors, it's probably because it's like an intentional lifestyle choice. They probably figured their shit out. They figured out what's risky and what's not, and how to like navigate these things. And their relationships are still like especially with their opens, can sometimes be messy. But I see like pretty high levels of commitment still. Right? Like, I mean, Destiny and Melina's been together for 4 years. Another one of my friends that is not a streamer, they've been together for like 7 years now. That's like 3 of them. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure how well it's going to migrate, how well that's going to map onto our culture, the more like open and poly relationships begin to exist. I know one of my friends is open, and she's been with her boyfriend for 7 years, right? So it's like they're very committed to each other, and yet they also have a high body count, obviously.
Can I press you, though, that do you think there's a correlation? Because remember, a correlation would be like, it's a sum across the population.
Yeah. So the issue is the sociosexual people that I'm talking about in my space are having sex with each other. They're all sociosexual. They're sociosexual men and women, and they're all fucking each other. they're not really fucking like your average dude. Like if it's a guy and it's been like 2 years since he's had sex or dated, it's very unlikely that he's going to meet like this like casual, light-hearted, like flirty girl who like wants to be in an open relationship and can commit to you. She's probably not in your circle. So like yeah, for like the average viewer that's listening, there is an element that like probably a higher body count girl is going to be a little bit more likely to like, if she's willing to fall, not even higher body count. It's more about if she's willing to get into bed with you quickly, she might also be willing to get into bed quickly with somebody else, right? Like that's kind of the risk, which to me is less about body count and more about like sexual strategies. But yeah, I would say it like maps out a little bit. I just think there's better heuristics. That's my issue.
I see what you're saying. Anybody else? Any thoughts before I say anything?
What exactly is the question? Can you sum it up?
Yeah,
like,
yeah, that's what I wanted to hear too.
Are more promiscuous women also, and this is like, it's a small correlation, so I'm not suggesting like a one-to-one correspondence of like, oh, if she's sensual, like if she's having sex with multiple partners, or like maybe willing to do it on the first date, like is she more likely to also leave you out to dry? By that I mean kind of be like unethical in certain contexts, totally different from sexuality, like not having to do with sexuality.
like break up with you?
No, I mean like lie to you or do something, let's say be selfish, like self-centered about something.
I
They're
would
kind of like,
venture to say to say there's probably a correlation there.
and like I said, I don't want you to feel like you're locked into like a correlation of 0.9. It could be just a correlation of 0.1. And I think that's
Yeah,
kind of
I
where
think there's somewhat of a correlation. I don't think it's a super huge correlation, but I think there's a somewhat of a correlation there. I don't know if there's a causation, but I think there's a correlation.
Right. I don't know if there's anybody
Probably
else.
the same thing that's driving the high body count and the lack of commitment. The reason that these two things are correlating, the body count and the lack of commitment, is because there's something underneath driving both of these behaviors, if that makes sense. There's a confounding variable, or like there's this Z factor that isn't being teased apart with the heuristic, right? Because these two things do occur together a lot of the time. The issue is that if you use that as like your guiding post red flag, you're going to miss out on a whole bunch of people where the high body count isn't correlating to the type of girl who's going to be super flaky and like dip on you in a relationship right away. And so that's an issue for vetting.
I get what you mean. The correlation, yeah. When I thought that I was sensing it, I was kind of like, it was like small correlate, really small, like subtle, very 0.1 or something like that. Anybody else thoughts on that? This hypothesis?
Yeah,
Give it a number.
I have no
Keep
idea whether or not this. I mean, we'd have to find some, like, we'd have to figure out some data on it. So I don't even know what we'd be measuring specifically, but I guess it'd be interesting to see. My thought, I think, like in terms of like, because we kind of, I think we were kind of talking about like more open relationships for a minute there, and my thought is that as that becomes a bit more common, the more successful versions of those are those where there's a lot of like strong communication, and so I would imagine that over time we would start to see like a correlation between that, like where like people who are successful with that kind of strategy are also going to be like pretty communicative with their partners, ideally. I mean, that's what I would hope to see. So I don't know. That's
Yeah,
kind of
there's
my
definitely a
gut
correlation
feeling.
between a successful relationship and good communication skills for any type of relationship. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think it suggests that, those women are highly novelty seeking, which can correlate with, certain attributes as well. It's not going to be the root cause. Like, I mean, I kind of agree with Erudite on that. I mean, there's a deeper, more fundamental cause for why they're acting like that. Maybe it's trauma, maybe it's whatever. But I do think that it's something that you can correlate, not with everything, not with every bad action or attribute, but with some things, right, that are more novelty seeking.
Right.
Yeah.
Which I think you can test for, right? This is the key thing. This is why I tell people, women with high body flag, I'm fine if you treat that as a yellow flag, to be honest. Men with super high body count should be yellow flags too, like genuine, especially if you want monogamy, right? I think that that's totally fine. I think it's fine to treat it as this way. What I would say though is if the thing you're worried about is the impulsivity and the likelihood to like maybe be emotionally volatile or to like leave you or something like that, what we have to figure out is what are other metrics that you can vet for in the relationship that will better map onto that thing that you're actually wanting to vet out, because you do want to exclude those individuals as a future partner, obviously, right? I'm not encouraging men to just date women with high body counts, like sluts or people. They're all the same. I'm not saying that. I'm not trying to give bad advice. I'm trying to say, how do we take yellow flags and then use that to narrow into what we actually care about? Because there'd be nothing worse than to be like a 32-year-old guy dating a 28-year-old woman. She's got like a 12 body count, but it all occurred within like the first 3 years of her 20s. And she's like, yeah, I tried that shit and it was fucking awful. I'm really interested in a long-term relationship. That might actually be an excellent partner because she's actually like figured out more clearly what she's interested in as far as like commitment.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the issues is that it's, there's not a lot of great metrics out there. Like, you're not going to go up to a woman and say, hey, like, you're not going to do a psychological analysis on her and, draw the readings of, of some certain tests. You're going to say, well, I mean, body count is a very quantitative measure that, it's not a perfect heuristic.
It's not, because the girl can easily lie. That's the thing. Like, the girls can really skew, so you have no way of knowing.
Right, and that's why you wouldn't ask her directly, right? I mean, if you like, this is a case where if you knew that she had a high body count because she's open about it, or she slept with other people that well, then that's something that you already know, right? You wouldn't ask her directly.
But let's say she's not public about her sex life, then how are you gonna find out?
Well, then you got to go with other things.
Right. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, I think, like, for example, honesty, like, is a better metric. Like, have you've been with this girl for how long? Have you ever caught her in any lies? That's a pretty good one, right? If I ever caught any girl in a lie, that's a pretty big red flag right there. That would be one.
But what if she's good at this? What if she's good at hiding her lies?
I think no one is, unless she's like the best fucking sociopath ever. No one is that good. When the time span gets big enough, it's like 2-3 years. Eventually, like, people slip up and get caught. I think that's one. I think another one is shady behavior, right? Like, does she engage in any kind of shady behavior? Like, when you walk over, does she like fucking like flip out and hide her phone? Like, I don't know. There's things like that you can look for. Yeah, inconsistencies.
Like on her friends all the time. Does she talk like shit about her friends all the time? If she's talking shit about her friends to you, she's probably not talking great about you either.
Yep. What kind of relationship does she have with her family? Right. That's another one. I don't know. I feel like there's a whole bunch of metrics you can look at.
Does she engage in lots of antisocial behavior? Like, does she like regularly steal from people? Like, if you like see her with a new jacket and you're like, where'd you get it? She's like, oh, I took it from my friend, right? Like, oh, I took it from the store, right? There's so many things that you can start kind of using to vet about whether or not you think somebody's quality enough to go through. That I think body count, if you care about it, that's fine, right? That's it. You're allowed to have whatever preferences you want. All I think we're saying is just realize it's not really a red flag. It's just like such a bad metric for a red flag. There's so many better things to like use to vet whether they're a good partner.
I get what you mean. Although don't get me wrong. I don't know if anybody was, because for me, like, I guess it's like, you could say a student of life. Like, I love philosophy. I love, like, where I'm like, what's the nature of reality? Is that for me, I'm just like, is it true? Even if it's to a small extent. But even, I almost feel like, given that nobody here tonight has said, like, yeah, you should use it, but maybe it's just because it's so common in the red. I don't know if it is common in the red pill community, but I'm like, nobody here has said it tonight. Like, yes, and you should use it as a heuristic, even if the correlation is like 0.1, which isn't very meaningful. But there's so much of like, everybody, don't use it though. Don't use it though. Don't use it though. It's been said 50,000 times during this stream. Why? I'm not trying to say that there's no good reason. Maybe it's like I said, because in the red pill community, maybe
I don't think anyone.
But I've just noticed.
Well, I don't think anyone.
I think that both you. I think that both you and Erudite have. Well, you said. Let me put it right. I think that you've said, hey, like it's like you call it a yellow flag, but like there are so many other better ones to use. Like, are there people that are saying like, oh, this is a red flag, you should use this as your first thing?
Yes.
I think you need to look at things with like nuance and stuff. So the first piece of nuance is what degree of high body count. Are we talking about 10 or 100? Those two are not the same thing. So I do think that you need to look at the degree. Also, the factors. How old is she? right? Like for a girl who's like 18 years old, her body count is 20. That's a lot. For a girl who's like 35 and she's at 20, that's not that much, right? So there's a lot. I think that's a factor you have to consider. But yeah, I think it is something that you can look at. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, but I think there are better metrics to look at. And then when you combine that, in addition to a small degree looking at body count, I think you get a pretty good picture of, and you can screen the girl.
I get what you're saying. I don't disagree with either of you. I was just thinking, I was like, why aren't they keep saying this when nobody on the panel has said, like, this is a really good indicator or a really good heuristic? And now I think I got the answer, though. Erudite said, like, because a lot of people do say that you should use that as like a primary, way
Yeah,
of screening.
the rental is obsessed with that.
Yeah.
Okay.
The first time I was on here with Kyla, actually, we were or mostly she was arguing with this guy Undead Chronic, who has like a on his stream, he has this like no hymen, no diamond slogan, which is like, it's just super cringe. Yeah, it was a fun guy.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is
Well,
the-
I also think, let me just add this. I also think the high body count thing is not just about, reflecting the woman's virtues or lack thereof. I think there's also an element of, like, it's very visceral, right? To even imagine, your potential girlfriend or existing girlfriend getting plowed, and men just don't like that. It's just the very, you just don't want to imagine that your significant other has been plowed by 10 other guys.
Ego thing. Yep.
So it's not necessarily always a reflection of their virtues. It's also a very like primitive, visceral type of reaction to that image.
Yep. That I agree with.
Makes sense. Okay. Now I get it. Thank you for clarifying that it's a common thing out there. And I have a total conversation topic switch, unless I didn't want to cut off anybody else if they had thoughts on this. Otherwise, exactly maybe where I'm going, Alex, based on that last text I sent you asking about it. But anybody last thoughts on this issue?
Like, can you like encapsulate the issue in like one sentence real quick? I kind of just joined in.
Oh yeah, we were just talking about, like, is there a correlation, even if it's like a really tiny correlation of like 0.1, where women who happen to be have more sexual partners,
Promiscuous?
Yep, thank you. Are they also more unethical, or I should say, are they unethical in non-sexual scenarios? Are those behaviors correlated? Namely, unethical behavior in non-sexual contexts and being promiscuous.
Wait, so does anybody disagree with that?
No, I don't think so. It's a really
they agree that like promiscuity leads to more potential.
No, just that they move together, they co-vary. So in other words, like, it not necessarily that one causes the other, but that there's just like a small correlation of like 0.1. So it's a really small increased probability that if a woman's promiscuous, she's also going to be in non-sexual context.
I mean, I think anybody that has like critical self-awareness is going to agree that there's like a slow correlation between that. But I tend to think that it's possible with girls that have higher body counts, if they're self-aware of why they do, like some of their behaviors or like maybe traumas that lead them to those behavior patterns. If they're aware of that, they can kind of fix it maybe for a potential marriage. But a lot of girls nowadays, I think, are just so like flooded with like mainstream media and westernized culture in terms of like hookup culture that kind of ruins their brain, and they don't really realize why they're partaking in the behaviors they do.
Yeah.
So
That's what I
would.
Go ahead, Michelle. Sorry, you haven't spoken.
I would agree that there's definitely a correlation. And like Kyla, I would also agree that as a woman gets older, and as she gets more settled into like a lifestyle, if she is more social, sexual, then, you start getting more healthy within the lifestyle, and you start living it in a much more honest way. And that becomes very freeing, at least in my experience. Like I thrive on being very honest and just saying things like it is. And I don't keep any secrets from my husband. And we're very, very open about everything. So, I mean, I definitely see where you guys are going with it when it comes to, younger women that are kind of exploring. But I do think that there is a very small group of people who have sex recreationally that also live very productive, healthy lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
So long as they don't like let those behaviors engulf them, though.
Same with men, though, right? The issue is like when we're getting to
I mean,
these
yeah,
types of
I'm
issues-
arguing in terms of like
Yeah,
anybody.
yeah. I know you got like the Christian worldview too, so I know that you're talking about like both. Yeah, yeah. I would say,
Also,
like,
Erudite, I wanted to come on. I don't want to like just throw a debate topic at you right now. I know it's 2 hours 30 minutes in, so Alex probably wants to wrap up soon.
We
But
got like 20 minutes.
I
20.
want to run a couple topics by you. Like I need to do a little bit more research on my side of things before I debate with you. I was curious to know if you'd like be down to come back on Alex's channel at some point. You and I
Yeah,
can have a little debate about
yeah, we
something.
can do it on Alex's. You can just come on mine if you like want, like
Okay.
whatever you prefer. We can go on
Sure.
another platform if like you want. I don't know. Are you starting to stream or anything like that?
People want me to, but I just haven't been able to find time. So maybe we could do it on my channel. It could be like my debut
Yeah,
debate.
there's a lot of really good debate panels as well that are really good exposure, and so I'm just trying to think like let's like min max it for you. So yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Do you use Discord? Because Discord's
I
gonna be
do.
the best way to connect to me. Okay. I'll post my Discord on the side chat, and you can
Okay.
add me.
So a couple topics I wanted to run by you because I mean I don't know how you feel about debating philosophical topics. I'm kind of big on that. That's one topic that I'd be interested in debating you on, even though I think we might agree on some things. Critical race theory, inflation, mainstream media, like anything like that. Sort of like, does any of that pique your interest, or like the debate?
I'm not a good representative of CRT. I think there's like some little bits that I pull from it, but I'm not like a big lover of CRT. I think I don't know if Ryan Wig, maybe he likes.
Ryan,
CRT.
you're smiling like a motherfucker right now.
Okay, yeah.
You're muted, Ryan.
But I'm reading your lips and saying I do. I love critical race theory, I think is what you said. Okay, thanks.
Well, maybe he could join in on the debate potentially if we debated that. But if you're kind of like about it.
Inflation, I'd have to do. I'm like starting some economic reading, but I probably wouldn't.
Yeah, maybe not inflation as a whole.
Inflation. Yeah, I don't know what you want to debate about on inflation. Is it happening? Yes, it is.
Well, like, sort of like where can we go from this position in time? Like, why is it happening? Why do we think that it's happening? Blah 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 blah. Or we could just debate about like the government as a whole, what we think is going on, like behind the scenes, stuff like that. I don't know, because I don't really know your stances on these things. I think we might find some common ground, but.
Can we debate about Coach Whitepill?
Shut up, Alex.
I just wanted to say like one thing real quick about the critical race theory thing. Just like a quick like one sentence. Like when I Google critical race theory, like it seems to be like all of it is built on this foundation that like this fact I would say that is like that race is not a biological category, but rather a social one that we've like imposed on people. People have been categorized based on physical traits and then like granted rights or refused rights based on that and all the fallout from that. And so from that premise, at least, I find it very difficult to disagree with like that core of CRT. I am very actually suspicious of people who do. But I mean, obviously, it's a huge network of different people with different ideas over decades and decades. So it's not like one thing outside of that. But yeah, that seems to be kind of the baseline.
That was a big run-on sentence.
Damn.
Okay, actually, okay. So what I've understood from somebody in the chat actually pointing it out to me, more so conversations. I know your sort of like MO is like doing debates and stuff like that. I sort of am wanting to have like a conversation with you, like where we can bounce ideas maybe, and like people in the chat can sort of like hear two different sides. You could disagree with something I think about one thing, yada yada yada. I don't know what you do about those.
Yep,
Okay,
I have conversations with people.
Great.
I'm not too antisocial, I promise. Just spicy.
Oh, you fooled me.
One quick question before we go, Alex. I know you got to go soon, but
I got time. Go ahead.
Your friend Sneeko, is he indeed a cuck? And in particular, of the varieties of cuck, is he like a boyfriend whose girlfriend is having these relationships, or is he married I have to know this. I didn't know this
So
until.
first,
So
let
he
me just
forced
clarify.
himself into cuckoldry, and he
Sneeko-
said that it was
Sneeko's-
a bad experience.
Sneeko is not my friend. I've never met him in real life. We did one quasi debate together. So yeah, he's definitely not my friend. Is he a cuck? I don't. So it's like he engaged in a cuck type of thing, and he publicly confessed to it. But I don't think because of the way I mean, it just depends on how you define cuck. Like he said that it was like a very like this disgusting experience that like just like traumatized him. So that's not the reaction that a cuck would have. But was that a cuck experience? Yeah, sure it was. I guess I don't know. So it just depends on how you look at it.
Thank you. That makes sense. Wait, okay. That's all I needed to know.
Wait, did you think me and Sneaker were like BFFs?
No. I was just surprised that someone was like, "Oh, he's a cuck," and I was like, "What?" I was like, "I didn't know that," and I was like, "I didn't even think he was married." But then I was like, "Oh, but I guess could you be a cuck and just be boyfriend girlfriend and be a cuck?" I suppose.
Yeah, I think you could. Yeah.
It's 2023. I mean, hey.
Yeah,
Yep.
Sneako's never gonna live that story down.
Yeah, it's just like easy low hanging fruit in this space. So.
Especially if you're like a red pillar whose whole like brand is built on like fucking being tougher and being more manly. Like if he was like in a different community, I think he would be like fine. But in the red pill community, there's just like no like sympathy for that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. Does anyone have anything else they want to discuss? Michelle, Ryan, Uncomfortable Truth, Hugh.
I didn't come
Wait.
in with any spice. I don't know. I usually prepare something when I come on to.
Yo,
but
so
I
who
just
the
like
fuck
the
is
vibes.
Alex? Please look back. Say, who the fuck is Swag Messiah? Is that Greg? Is that a troll?
No,
The name is Messiah. It's Jesus Christ.
It's this dude. I typically bring him on. I've just had him on like a lot of times, so I just want to. Bring
Is
him
it Is it Max?
Yeah,
Because
it's Max.
okay, Max, don't fucking put my Discord in pretending like it's me, bro. Oh, don't do that.
He's a good dude. He's just a little long winded. So
Didn't he also say he wanted to blow me one time?
I
You remember that?
don't know anything about that, my man.
No, Alex, you remember that. You remember
I do not
that.
remember
It's a
anyone
compliment,
trying to
right?
blow you besides Coach Whitehill. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, no. Erudite. So I'm gonna find like more ideas, debates. Maybe I kind of just like am setting it up for now, and then during the conversation, I'll probably disagree with you on something, and then it might like devolve into a debate. I don't know how it's gonna go. I kind of just want to like throw some ideas out there, see what you think about them, see what everyone thinks about them. Yeah.
Cool. All right, appreciate everyone. Check out Kyle's channel. Check out James from R&D Debate. I've been on there quite a few times. Good channel, good stuff. When's the next? You're hosting a debate between Vosh and Wheat Waffles, right?
Hopefully, if Vosh gets back to me in time.
Ooh, nice. When are you gonna bring me on, James?
That would be tremendous. I would love to have you on. Let me get back to you to find out like what possible opponent, because it'd be a lot of fun.
Yeah, give me someone with a high power level, okay?
Definitely.
Okay.
On that note, James, I would actually love to do a critical race theory debate because that's obviously super topical right now. I think like 17 states have attempted to ban the teaching of some form of critical race theory in schools, which is very scary in my opinion. I think it would be very interesting to talk about. So.
This is what Ryan loses sleep overnight. He's like, "Oh my god, 17 schools."
Well, I don't want to live in a world where people aren't taught proper American history and they live in America and then they vote on that basis. It seems like a really bad.
Maybe Ryan, maybe you and I debating might be a better panel, since you seem to
you want to debate me on
since you have
critical race theory.
Since you have a more like concrete like stance on it.
Sure. I mean, I'll talk to you about that. I'll talk to you. Yeah, I love talking about critical race theory. I think it's important. Yeah.
If you're watching, as I mentioned earlier, if you're watching on Erudite or Playing with Fire's channel, highly encourage you. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button. For real, you guys, you probably get value from PWF and Erudites. If not value, at least entertainment, that type of value. So just from watching Alex eat. So do hit that subscribe button, as it's been a fun time.
Yeah, it's the ultimate dating strategies. Eat the way I do, and there's a lot of science to it in front of a girl, and works 10 out of 10 times, 100% of the time. No girl can resist. That's why Kyla was getting the giggles. She was like, "Oh my god, I can't resist! It's so sexy."
That
when you eat
mouth
like that."
action, you know, they're like,
Yeah.
you know, if he can
Yeah,
move his mouth like that here, then
Exactly. All right, guys, appreciate y'all. Have a good night.